Chapter 412. Secondly, although the fiendish demons are bloodthirsty, it's just a desire for good food. Their cultivation base is still based on the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, as well as the essence of the sun and moon. From now on, Lao Tzu will not allow the fiendish demons to eat humans. If Lao Tzu finds out that any fiendish demons are eating humans, don't blame him for throwing them into the hellfire purgatory and making them unable to reincarnate. Thirdly, within 3 days, gather all the demon kings in the Tongtian Ridge for Lao Tzu. I have something to announce. When the 3 orders were announced one by one, the 8 great demon kings and the many fiendish demons were stunned. Everyone looked troubled. Yi Xian's first order was still manageable. It was just to change the environment of the Tongtian Ridge. However, the second order was to not allow the fiendish demons to eat humans. This was obviously extremely difficult. One had to know that in the entire North Continent, which fiendish demon did not eat humans, let alone the Tongtian Ridge? Even though the 8 great demon kings set an example and restricted the fiendish demons under them to abide by this ban, many years of habit had already been deeply ingrained. They could not prevent this from happening at all. As for Yi Xian's third order, it was even more difficult. The Tongtian Ridge spanned tens of millions of miles. Although it was said to be under the control of the 9 great demon kings, there were actually several great demons residing in the Tongtian Ridge. They were only in a cooperative relationship with the 9 great demon kings. For example, the desolate swamp that spanned hundreds of thousands of miles was the territory of the sky-swallowing toad spirit. The sky-swallowing toad spirit was a primordial species. Although it was only at the level of an all-heaven golden immortal, its innate divine abilities were extremely terrifying. Even the former blood god king did not dare to offend it. There was also the bone forest that spanned 800,000 miles. It was the territory of a bone demon. Any living thing that entered the bone forest would definitely die. Even the fiendish demons of the Tongtian Ridge did not dare to enter casually. The 100,000 mountains was guarded by the flaming heavenly corpse. There were countless undead and zombies under him. There were even legends that said that the flaming heavenly corpse was at the peak of the all-heaven golden immortal realm. It would not be long before he ascended to the zenith heaven realm and transformed into the terrifying drought demon. These 3 great demons were lone wolves. Although they resided in the Tongtian Ridge, they were not under the command of the 9 great demon kings. It was merely a cooperative relationship. In the past, Blood God King had tried to recruit the 3 of them, but in the end he had failed. It was not that he was afraid of the 3 monsters, but that fighting them was not worth it. Furthermore, if something major were to happen to the Tongtian Ridge, the 3 great Yaos would naturally lend a hand. Over the past tens of thousands of years, the Tongtian Ridge had formed its current power structure. Of course, Yi Xian's arrival also broke the peace of the Tongtian Ridge. Blood God Monarch also died at his hands. Yi Xian was an extremely domineering person. Since he was the master of the Tongtian Ridge, he wouldn't allow anyone who didn't obey him to live in the Tongtian Ridge. Big brother, there's something you don't know. Please listen to me in detail. King Qingqiu bowed and slowly told Yi Xian about the Tongtian Ridge's situation. The other great demon kings echoed from time to time. Obviously, Yi Xian's 3 orders were indeed difficult for them. After King Qingqiu finished speaking, Yi Xian's expression remained calm without the slightest change. However, his eyes were malicious as he looked at the 8 demon kings. His voice was cold as he said, "All of you better remember that no one can go against my will. If those 3 demon kings refuse to obey me, I will naturally make them obey me. As for the first 2 orders, I want all of you to complete them within 3 days. If you can't complete what I've given you, you should know what will happen." Bang! When Yi Xian stood up, the white bone throne beneath him turned into powder. The surrounding space distorted to the extreme, and that faintly discernible killing intent pressed down on the 8 demon kings, causing them to break out in a cold sweat. They all lowered their heads to accept the order. How could they dare to disobey in the slightest? Go! I want to see the results within 3 days. Yes, big brother. The 8 great demon kings wiped the cold sweat off their foreheads. They looked at each other and hurriedly left. Obviously, They also knew that Yi Xian was not just saying. If they could not complete the task given by Yi Xian, they would probably die in Yi Xian's hands. No one could go against his martial power. Yi Xian did not care if the 8 great demon kings were angry or resentful. If anyone dared to go against his will, he would directly kill them. 3 days was extremely short. The 8 demon kings had completely carried out Yi Xian's orders, and the tens of thousands of kilometers of the heavenly mountain range had undergone earth-shattering changes in these 3 days. First of all, the 9 demon cave looked brand new. It was directly flattened by the demons. The stinking blood pool was destroyed, and the bones that littered the ground were swept clean. Under Yi Xian's orders, large amounts of spiritual plants were planted. It gave off a clean and refreshing feeling. It became a paradise. Mountains were dug to build roads, rivers were filled, and ancient pine trees were planted all over the Tongtian Ridge. The ground that was once stained with blood was completely flattened. Fresh flowers and spiritual plants were planted on it. The 8 great demon kings personally cast their spells and called upon the wind and rain to water the ground. In just one day, the Tongtian Ridge looked brand new. Countless demons suffered unspeakably. In 3 days, they tidied up the Tongtian Ridge. Not only did they have to destroy the bones everywhere, they also had to release the captured humans. The demons cursed inwardly for eating juicy spiritual fruits. However, under the suppression of the 8 great demon kings, they could only be angry but did not dare to say anything. When the sun rose on the 4th day, Yi Xian stood on the Tongtian peak, with a satisfied look on his face. The mountain was covered in vegetation and spiritual plants. The fragrance of the plants wafted through the mountains. Demonic light and spiritual energy rippled through the mountains. It had turned into a spiritual mountain paradise. The barren mountains and turbulent rivers no longer existed. The Tongtian Ridge now looked brand new. Although Yi Xian was satisfied, the group of demons felt extremely uncomfortable. They were demons to begin with, and what they liked was blood and corruption. Now that the environment of Tongtian Ridge had become like this, it was simply unbearable for them. Of course, Yi Xian naturally knew that the demons were unhappy. However, he did not care at all. Whoever dared to disobey his orders would only end up being crushed to ashes by Yi Xian. Of course, during these 3 days, Yi Xian did not stay idle. He walked around the Tongtian Ridge and found that some demons were secretly devouring humans. However, they were all killed by Yi Xian. It was not just a single demon, but an entire race. For example, a snake demon was secretly eating humans. When it was discovered by Yi Xian, this snake demon's race, which numbered in the hundreds of thousands, was completely annihilated by Yi Xian's immortal technique. Of course, Yi Xian didn't pity humans. His pity had long since been thrown to an unknown place. It was just that he didn't like demons eating humans. This made him feel disgusted, and that was the only reason. Moreover, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Although the cultivation of the hundreds of thousands of demons was weak, when gathered together, it was better than nothing. They were directly devoured by Yi Xian's tribulation transcender technique. During these 3 days, if Yi Xian's killing was vicious, it would be more accurate to say that he was looking for trouble with the demons. As long as they made the slightest mistake, the other party and the race behind them would die. It was also because of Yi Xian's vicious and terrifying methods that millions of demons died in his hands in these 3 days. This also gave Yi Xian the title of a tyrant. Although the demons were angry and resentful, there was also a good side. That was, no one dared to disobey Yi Xian's orders. Obviously, Yi Xian's terror had made the demons extremely afraid. Chapter 413. Thump, thump, thump. The demon drum of the mountains was beating, and all the demons in the mountains were gathering towards the Tongtian peak. The demonic light covered the sky and covered the earth. It was obvious that today was the day the demons came to pay their respects to Yi Xian. It was also a symbolic ceremony for Yi Xian to become the master of the Tongtian Ridge. Greetings, North Star Great Sage. The 8 great demon kings rushed over from all directions. When they landed on the Tongtian peak, they all bowed to Yi Xian and lowered their statuses. The Great King is invincible. The North Star Great King lives as long as the heavens. The demons in the mountains were eccentric. All kinds of cheers and roars could be heard. Demons were demons. They were used to being undisciplined and naturally preferred freedom. Naturally, they did not have the neat discipline of the celestial court. Although they were dissatisfied with Yi Xian was the master of the Tongtian Ridge. They were also under the protection of Yi Xian. Naturally, they trusted Yi Xian. The demons roared and the demonic light covered the sky. Yi Xian slowly sat on the white bone throne. Although he was only dressed in black and did not wear any royal robes or crown, he was the master of the Tongtian Ridge from today onwards. The five-colored divine light covered the sky, and the demonic fog in the Tongtian Ridge stirred up the clouds. Yi Xian looked at the demons in the mountains. His terrifying aura spread out, and the demons fell silent. They all looked at Yi Xian with respect. "Congratulations, big brother, for taking control of the Tongtian Ridge," the Lionheart King said with a smile. "From today onwards, with Big Brother in charge of the Tongtian Ridge, our Tongtian Ridge will definitely prosper. We will be an overlord in the North Continent," the Torch Dragon King said flatteringly. "Little ones, Blood God King is a thing of the past. From today onwards, North Star Great Sage Yi Xian will be the master of the Tongtian mountain range. He will definitely lead us to dominate this area." White Deer King was unwilling to fall behind. He continued to flatter Yi Xian, causing the demons in the mountain to cheer. "Big brother, you are in charge of the Tongtian Ridge today. Do you have any instructions for us?" King Qingqiu was the only woman among the 8 demon monarchs, and her true form was that of the Green Fox clan. She was naturally intelligent, so she naturally would not flatter Yi Xian like King Zhulong and the others. Yi Xian sat high on the white bone throne as he looked down calmly. Apart from the 8 demon monarchs present, there were also some greater demons standing to the sides. None of the 3 demon monarchs were present. Yi Xian had already expected such a situation. His eyes turned cold. Although he did not say anything, the 8 demon monarchs' expressions changed slightly. They knew that Yi Xian was angry. "Big brother, we have already sent the news to the 3 demon monarchs. However, the reply we received was that they are in seclusion and cannot come to see you. However, the 3 demon monarchs have already sent messengers to deliver congratulatory gifts," King Qingqiu said with a forced smile. "Messengers?" Yi Xian smiled disdainfully and said calmly, "I would like to see what they have sent." Looking at Yi Xian's calm face, the 8 demon monarchs' expressions changed slightly. They looked at each other and saw the worry in each other's eyes. However, the 8 of them did not say anything and quickly summoned the 3 messengers. A white-clothed woman with silver-white hair was surrounded by a gloomy aura of death. She was clearly the subordinate of the white-bone spirit. A toad-like demon with short legs and a pockmarked face was extremely rotten. He was the subordinate of the sky-swallowing toad. There was also a young man who looked like a human. The rotten aura around him was extremely strong. He did not have the aura of a living person at all. Clearly, his original form was a zombie. He was also the subordinate of the Scarlet Flame Corpse. "Greetings, Great Sage Beichen." The 3 messengers bowed. Their postures were neither arrogant nor humble. They held 3 brocade boxes in their hands. Clearly, the 3 brocade boxes contained the congratulatory gifts that the 3 demon monarchs had sent to Yi Xian. "Our king knows that Great Sage Beichen is in charge of the Tongtian Ridge. He specially ordered me to present you a pearl of the Southern Sea." The white-clothed woman's voice was cold. Her pale hand handed the brocade box to King Qingqiu so that he could pass it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian casually opened the brocade box. A bright pearl was reflected in Yi Xian's eyes. He only took a glance at it, and then casually closed the brocade box again. "Our king has sent a blood coral. Please accept it, Great Sage Beichen," the toad demon said in a muffled voice, and handed the brocade box over. However, Yi Xian did not even have the interest to open it. He could only let King Qingqiu hold it in his hand awkwardly. A Namingli fire pearl. The zombie young man handed the brocade box to King Qingqiu stiffly and remained silent. At this moment, the 3 messengers stood below. The 8 demon monarchs had different expressions. From time to time, they would steal glances at Yi Xian from the corner of their eyes. There was a hint of worry in their eyes. Although the 8 demon monarchs had not been in contact with Yi Xian for a long time, they could tell from Yi Xian's way of doing things that their big brother was not Lord Blood God. His methods were domineering and cruel. This time, the 3 demon monarchs did not come to meet him. They did not know how their big brother was going to deal with it. Namingly Fire Pearl? Blood Coral? Namingly Fire Pearl? Yi Xian sneered. When his palm gently brushed over the 3 brocade boxes, the 3 brocade boxes turned into ashes under the astonished gazes of the 8 demon monarchs and the 3 messengers. How dare you give me these ordinary items as gifts? Do your masters think that I Kong Li am easy to bully? Or are they tired of living? Yi Xian leaned forward. His eyes were extremely malicious. The way he looked at the 3 messengers was as if he wanted to devour them. Great sage, you must be joking. This is already the best treasure our king has. How can it be an ordinary item? The toad demon explained with a forced smile. Great sage, when Lord Blood God was still in power, my master was not his subordinate. However, we were in an alliance. Please understand, great sage. The white-robed woman frowned slightly. The zombie young man snorted coldly. He did not explain. The attitudes of the 3 messengers were different. However, it was obvious that none of them took Yi Xian seriously. This also made the 8 demon monarchs' expressions change drastically. They knew that something big was about to happen. Sure enough, under the astonished gazes of the 8 demon monarchs, Yi Xian smiled. However, his smile was extremely terrifying. It made one's soul tremble. Kill them. These simple words stunned the 8 demon monarchs. Just as they were about to dissuade Yi Xian, they saw Yi Xian looking at them with an extremely cruel gaze. This also made the 8 demon monarchs come to their senses. Large amounts of cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. They knew that Yi Xian wanted them to express their loyalty. How dare you, little demon? How dare you be disrespectful to my big brother? Torch Dragon King was a fence-sitter. He knew that he had offended Yi Xian before. This was a good opportunity for him to show off. This also made him roar and stride towards the 3 messengers. Facing Torch Dragon King's terrifying killing intent, the 3 messengers' expressions changed drastically. The toad demon even retreated with a trembling voice. Torch Dragon King. You. What are you doing? If you kill us, how will you explain to our king? At the mention of the 3 demon monarchs, Torch Dragon King's expression changed slightly. His breathing also stopped, and a hint of fear flashed across his eyes. However, when he felt Yi Xian's cold gaze, his body suddenly trembled, and the fear in his eyes disappeared. Disrespect to my big brother. Die for this king. Rumble. Torch Dragon King attacked violently. When he reached out with his palm, the void exploded, and the 3 messengers instantly exploded into a bloody mist. The 3 of them did not even have the chance to scream. Torch Dragon King attacked violently in an instant. By the time the other demon monarchs woke up and wanted to attack, it was already too late. Moreover, it was also at this moment that the 7 of them could completely feel Yi Xian's sinister gaze. This also made the 7 of them tremble, and they secretly regretted not attacking earlier. How can I let them die so easily? Lionheart King's eyes turned and he roared loudly. The demon light technique was cast, and the primordial spirits of the 3 messengers were detained. However, the other demon monarchs had already woken up this time. How could they allow Lionheart King to express his loyalty to Yi Xian alone? Die! The 7 demon monarchs attacked crazily, and instantly killed the 3 messengers. Only then did they turn to look at Yi Xian. Everyone had a flattering smile on their faces, but the fear in their eyes quietly flashed. Humph! Yi Xian snorted coldly, and no longer looked at the 8 demon monarchs. The murderous intent around him also dissipated at this moment. This also made the 8 demon monarchs secretly sigh, knowing that Yi Xian would not be calculative with them. The 3 messengers were beaten to death, but this matter was not over yet. Anyone who dared to go against Yi Xian's will would end up in an incomparably miserable state. After watching for so long, you should come out now, right? Suddenly, Yi Xian's eyes were gloomy as he stared at the boundless void. This also made the 8 demon monarchs slightly stunned. Then they instantly woke up, as if they had understood something at this moment. What? Do you want me to personally invite the 3 of you out? Yi Xian smiled coldly and slowly got up from the white bone throne. When he opened and closed his eyes, it was as if two great stars were rotating in his eyes. The five-colored divine light behind him shook the heavens and earth, causing the world to become extremely distorted. Chapter 4:14. Everything was silent, and the world was silent. The demons were horrified and looked on in surprise, because no one knew what Yi Xian was talking about. The 8 demon kings just looked on coldly with a sneer on their lips. Obviously, the 3 demon kings were here, and Yi Xian had already noticed their existence. After all, Blood God King had died in the hands of Yi Xian, so how could the 3 demon kings escape his eyes? Haha. Taoist Kong Li is indeed powerful. Tongtian, we greet you. A heroic laughter echoed in all directions. Light flickered in the air as 3 figures slowly walked towards Yi Xian. Even when the 3 of them stood on top of Tongtian Peak, the group of demons could clearly see who they were. One of them was a middle-aged man in a dark golden robe. However, he was fat and had a pair of frightening toad eyes. When he opened his mouth, there was a fishy smell. Obviously, he was the sky-devouring toad demon. There was a white-clothed woman with a graceful figure. Her snow-white skin was as translucent as jade, and 3,000 silver strands of hair hung down. She could be said to be a rare beauty. However, this woman's eyes were deathly white, completely destroying her beauty. Clearly, she was the white-bone spirit. The last person was bare-chested and burly. His skin looked like it was made of diamond, and his fiery hair looked like it was burning with heavenly fire. An extremely violent aura was slowly being released. Obviously, he was the Scarlet Flame Heavenly Corpse. The one who spoke was the sky-devouring toad. The other 2 demon kings looked at Yi Xian coldly, and a trace of hostility flashed in their eyes. Obviously, the 3 demon kings were peak golden immortals of the all-heaven heaven. Naturally, they could sense that Yi Xian was not a golden immortal, and was in the same realm as them. Naturally, they did not have much respect for Yi Xian. However, the 3 of them were puzzled. Blood God King was a golden immortal demon king. How did he die in the hands of Yi Xian? Big brother, let me introduce you to these 3 demon kings. Before King Qingqiu could finish, Yi Xian waved his hand and interrupted. There's no need to introduce these 3 trash. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the expressions of the 3 demon kings changed and a cold light flashed in their eyes. The sky-swallowing toad rolled its eyes and laughed. Fellow Taoist Kong, as the saying goes, more friends means more paths. Since you have already become the master of the Tongtian Ridge, the 3 of us naturally have nothing to say. However, when the Blood God Monarch was here, the 3 of us were only allies. Now that the Tongtian Ridge has a new master, the 3 of us hope that this alliance can continue. The sky-swallowing toad paused for a moment. When he saw Yi Xian's calm expression, he smiled coldly and continued. Of course, the 3 of us live in the Tongtian Ridge. If anything happens to the Tongtian Ridge, the 3 of us will not shirk our responsibilities. However, if you insist on making things difficult for us, then... The sky-swallowing toad smiled faintly. Although he did not finish his sentence, it was clear what he wanted to say. The 3 demon kings were telling Yi Xian that if he was willing to coexist peacefully, the 3 of them would not want to be his enemy. However, if he insisted on targeting the 3 of them, the 3 demon kings were not afraid of him. Haha. Looking at the fearless looks of the 3 demon kings, Yi Xian laughed maniacally, causing the world to shake violently. When Yi Xian stopped laughing, he leaned forward and stared at the 3 demon kings maliciously. Being stupid isn't scary. What's scary is those who think they are smart. How dare you 3 trash compare me to the Blood God Monarch? Are the 3 of you tired of living? Seems like you don't know how to write the word death at all. When Yi Xian finished speaking, the 3 demon kings squinted their eyes. An extremely violent demonic light spread out from them. They looked at Yi Xian with a sinister look. Kong Li, I gave you some face, and you still want to open a dye house. Let me see how capable you are. Bang! The flaming heavenly corpse took a step forward. The sky-burning demon fire soared into the sky. The endless fire covered the sky, as if it was going to burn down the world. You're courting death. Yi Xian's eyes were sinister. A cruel smile appeared on his face. He did not seem to have any power. However, when he took a step forward, the entire space was distorted. Rumble. The mountains and rivers exploded. The sky collapsed and the earth sank. A fist light broke through the past and present. It pierced through time and space, as if it came from the distant and unknown chaos. It suddenly enlarged in the flaming heavenly corpse's eyes. He did not even have a chance to dodge. Bang! One punch. It was just one punch. No one could see the trajectory of the punch. However, Yi Xian's punch penetrated the flaming heavenly corpse's chest and extinguished the sky-burning demon fire around him. Puff! The flaming heavenly corpse's eyes widened. Demon blood was spurting out of his mouth. However, the most terrifying thing was that he saw Yi Xian smiling at him cruelly. He even took out a bloody demon heart from his chest. Ah! The scarlet flame heavenly corpse screamed, his voice seeming to pierce through the heavens. He clutched his chest tightly as he trembled and looked at Yi Xian in horror. However, the next scene caused his body to tremble and his eyes to become extremely unfocused. Bang! Yi Xian's palm was dripping with blood. A dark red demon heart was in his hand. However, when Yi Xian's 5 fingers closed, the flaming heavenly corpse's demon heart was crushed in Yi Xian's hand. Demon blood flew everywhere. It was beautiful. However, this horrifying scene made the heaven and earth dead silent. Simple, violent, cruel, and vicious. It was unimaginable, and it was even more indescribable. However, the group of demons was deathly silent. Some of the weaker ones had their legs trembling as they fell to the ground like a pile of mud. It was obvious that they were frightened by Yi Xian. Tap, tap, tap. Yi Xian walked forward slowly. With every step he took, the entire Tongtian Peak rumbled. The endless mountains trembled violently under his feet. Lawless, cruel, and ruthless. When Yi Xian walked to the front of the flaming heavenly corpse, he slowly raised his jade-like palm and suddenly slapped toward his cheek. Bang! The flaming heavenly corpse was unable to resist and was powerless to resist. The flaming heavenly corpse was directly slapped to the ground. His body that seemed to be made of diamond cracked and his face caved in. The pitch-black demon blood kept spurting out. Bang! Yi Xian's fist smashed down. The flaming heavenly corpse's spine caved in, and half of his body was smashed into the ground. However, the pitch-black demon blood spurted out from all parts of his body. It was simply unbearable to look at. Bang, bang, bang. Yi Xian smiled cruelly as he smashed his fists onto the head of the scarlet flame heavenly corpse. His fists were stained with a large amount of black blood, but he didn't seem to be tired of it and was enjoying the pleasure of killing. Such a scene shocked the demons. The 8 demon kings trembled as they watched. The white-boned spirit and the sky-devouring toad felt as if they had fallen into a dream. They simply couldn't believe what they were seeing. The flaming heavenly corpse was in existence at the peak of all heaven. He was only one step away from stepping into the grand heavenly realm. Chapter 415. The most important problem was that the scarlet flame heavenly corpse was born from the heaven and earth fire essence. The heaven-burning demonic fire in his body was comparable to the Samadhi true fire. Even Daoyuo Jingxian didn't dare to touch it casually. Moreover, although the scarlet flame heavenly corpse was only at the peak of the all-heaven realm, he had already condensed the power of the drought demon. His origin power was even more terrifying. Even if he wasn't a match for Daoyuo Jingxian, he still had the ability to escape. But what were they seeing now? The dignified scarlet flame heavenly corpse wasn't even a match for Yi Xian, and was even tortured to death to such an extent that it didn't even have the chance to resist. This was simply unbelievable to the white-boned spirit and the sky-swallowing toad. In fact, whether it was the sky-devouring toad, the white-boned spirit, or even the 8 great demon kings, they didn't know that Yi Xian wasn't at the peak of the all-heaven realm. His current cultivation was extremely mysterious. This was because Yi Xian had already stepped on the path of using strength to prove his Tao, and had condensed the 9 revolution golden core. When the 9 revolution golden core was completed, he would be able to step into the Daoyuo realm. At that time, Yi Xian would be an extremely terrifying existence. Although Yi Xian hadn't stepped into the Great Luo stage yet, the 9 revolutions Great Luo golden core was still in its initial form. His combat strength was simply indescribable. How could a mere scarlet flame heavenly corpse be his match? Sealing the sky and trapping the earth, suppressing the sky with his palm. Yi Xian's every punch seemed ruthless and cruel, but it contained his Tao. He had already sealed the scarlet flame heavenly corpse's cultivation. Not to mention resisting, it was impossible for him to even escape from this place. Spare me, spare me. The scarlet flame heavenly corpse trembled as he begged for mercy. Half of his head had been shattered by Yi Xian, and his voice was extremely weak. If he hadn't been born from the heaven and earth fire essence, just Yi Xian's terrifying attacks would have already caused his soul to scatter and die. Humans didn't want to die, and demons were no exception. The scarlet flame heavenly corpse was only a step away from the grand heavenly realm. How could he want to die? He could only beg Yi Xian for his life. Yi Xian grabbed the fiery hair of the scarlet flame heavenly corpse with one hand and fiercely pulled him out from the ground. Then he threw him to the ground like trash. His wide feet suddenly stomped on his head and forcefully crushed it, causing the scarlet flame heavenly corpse to let out a miserable howl. Big brother, please spare me. Little brother was wrong. There was no so-called humiliation, no self-respect. With Yi Xian stepping on his head, the scarlet flame heavenly corpse's primordial spirit began to crack inch by inch. This kind of unbearable pain made him beg for mercy. At this moment, Yi Xian's face was ferocious and cruel. His eyes were cold as he looked at the scarlet flame heavenly corpse under his feet. He said in a cold voice, "I'm a very reasonable person. Since you called me big brother, I'll give you another chance." Yi Xian moved his feet away and let the scarlet flame heavenly corpse struggle to get up. However, when he looked at Yi Xian, his eyes were filled with fear. Where was the arrogance from before? Suddenly, Yi Xian turned around and looked at Whitebone's spirit and the sky-swallowing toad with his sinister eyes. He said in a cold voice, "Kneel." It was a simple word, but it was like an ancient demonic mountain was pressing down on Whitebone's spirit and the sky-swallowing toad. It made their faces change slightly as hesitation appeared in their eyes. The two of them weren't stupid. On the contrary, they were very smart. Even the scarlet flame heavenly corpse wasn't a match for Yi Xian. Even if the two of them joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for Yi Xian. The only outcome was death. Yi Xian's eyes turned cold as a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. This also woke the two demon kings up. They looked at each other and saw the fear and helplessness in each other's eyes. Little brother greets big brother. Little sister kowtows to big brother. The two demon kings knelt down and decisively kowtowed 3 times to Yi Xian. Obviously, under the pressure of death, the so-called dignity was just a joke. At this moment, the 3 demon kings finally understood why Yi Xian killed Lord Blood God, and why the 8 demon kings didn't even dare to resist. They all bowed down to Yi Xian. It was because this person was too terrifying. In the entire Tongtian Ridge, who could be his opponent? Haha. Suddenly, Yi Xian's sinister expression disappeared. A warm smile appeared on his face as he personally helped the two up. Under the frightened gazes of the 2 demon kings, Yi Xian affectionately patted their shoulders and said, "Just now, big brother was only joking with a worthy younger brother and little sister. How could I really let my own brothers kowtow to me?" Temperamental and hostile, Yi Xian's change in attitude terrified the 3 demon kings to the extreme. They looked at Yi Xian with even more fear. Frightening, too frightening. If Yi Xian's cruel and ruthless methods from before had already frightened the 3 of them, then his current friendly attitude made them feel even more uneasy. This was because no one knew what Yi Xian would become in the next moment. It was very possible that he would directly kill the 3 of them. The demons in the mountains were in awe and veneration. If they were afraid of Yi Xian before, this fear was even stronger now, and it was mixed with a kind of reverence. This was because when the Blood God King was in charge of the Tongtian Ridge, he had never subdued the 3 demon kings. Now their new king had subdued the 3 demon kings in a single day. This also made the countless demons revere Yi Xian to the extreme. In fact, whether it was the Earth Immortal world or the Celestial Court, the most fundamental thing was strength. Only the strong would be respected. Obviously, Yi Xian was a peerless expert in the eyes of the demons. In other words, The weak were prey to the strong, and the survival of the fittest. Whoever had the biggest fist was the reason. This was the fundamental law of the three realms of heaven, earth, and man. Big Brother is benevolent. We are ashamed of our inferiority. The Torch Dragon King laughed flatteringly and flattered Yi Xian. Now that Big Brother is in charge of the Tongtian Ridge, the demons are loyal. This is a joyous occasion for the Tongtian Ridge. The Lionheart King hurriedly echoed. Big Brother's cultivation is in the Tongtian Ridge. Who in the North Continent dares to bully our Tongtian Ridge? The Great Rock King laughed out loud. Today Big Brother has unified the Tongtian Ridge. Let us brothers drink and chat merrily. The White Deer King laughed and requested Yi Xian. The various demon kings flattered, and immediately swept away the murderous aura from before, causing the demons in the mountains to cheer. Jars of spiritual wine were sent over, and stone tables were placed on the Tongtian Ridge. There were even spiritual fruits placed on the stone tables for Yi Xian and the various demon kings to sit together. Big Brother, I was insensible before. Let me offer you a toast. After all, the Scarlet Flame Heavenly Corpse was born from the fire essence of heaven and earth. Although half of his body was crippled by Yi Xian, he was still at the peak of the all-heaven realm. In the blink of an eye his body recovered. However, his face was pale, and it was obvious that his injuries were not light. Nevertheless, he still offered a toast to Yi Xian as an apology. Brother, what are you talking about? I was too heavy-handed earlier. Don't take it to heart, Yi Xian said with a gentle smile. Big Brother, please don't say that. I was rude and rude. Big Brother, you did not kill me. That is already a great kindness to me. How would I dare to resent you? The Scarlet Flame Heavenly Corpse was heartbroken. He finished the wine in his cup in one gulp, and his posture was extremely humble. Chapter 416. Good, good, good. Yi Xian repeated the word good 3 times, and finished the wine in his cup. This also made the Scarlet Flame Heavenly Corpse secretly sigh in relief, knowing that he had saved his life. The banquet went on slowly as the 11 monster kings toasted Yi Xian to express their loyalty. This also made Yi Xian smile and nod, but his eyes were calm. Big Brother, I have a suggestion. King Qingqiu's cheeks were bright red, and her eyes were a little blurry. It was obvious that she had drunk a lot of spirit wine, and was showing her charm. Yi Xian took a sip of the wine in his cup, and said in a gentle voice, Little sister, feel free to speak your mind. Big Brother's cultivation is at the Tongtian level. Even a zenith heaven is no match for Big Brother. We have 11 monster kings in the Tongtian Ridge. Including Big Brother, there are 12 of us. Why don't we call ourselves the 12 Tongtian demons? King Qingqiu said with a faint smile. Seventh sister, you're right. Big Brother's cultivation is at the Tongtian level. Sooner or later, your name will spread throughout the North Continent. Let's spread the banner of the 12 Tongtian demons, and let the people in the outside world know about the prestige of the Tongtian Ridge. We'll definitely dominate the North Continent. Torch Dragon King agreed with a flattering smile. The two's words naturally gained the approval of the monster kings, and the atmosphere suddenly became lively. However, Yi Xian did not say anything. When this situation fell into the eyes of the 11 monster kings, they gradually became silent, and all looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's expression was calm as he slowly put down his wine cup. This also made the monster kings sit up straight. Obviously, they knew that Yi Xian was about to speak, so they naturally did not dare to make a noise. The 12 Tongtian demons is a good name. Since all of you have suggested it, Big Brother also agrees. Yi Xian paused slightly at this point, then looked around at the monster kings and continued in a low voice. However, there's no need to dominate the Tongtian Ridge. Since I'm in charge of the Tongtian Ridge, this place is still too small. Gasp! As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, the expressions of the 11 demon kings slightly changed. Some of them even sucked in a breath of cold air, as if they'd vaguely understood something. Astonishment flashed through their eyes as they looked at Yi Xian. Big Brother, you mean? King Qingqiu asked carefully. Yi Xian said calmly, Brothers, how about we conquer the entire North Continent? With the Tongtian Ridge as our foundation, brothers, how about we conquer the entire North? Xian said calmly, Brothers, Brothers, let's conquer the entire North Continent with me. Silence, extreme silence. When Yi Xian finished speaking, the expressions of the monster kings changed drastically. The demonic light around them became chaotic, and they looked at Yi Xian with an extremely complicated and horrified expression. It was no wonder that the monster kings reacted that way. After all, the North Continent was vast and boundless, and there were countless ferocious demons running rampant. Although there were not many Grand Luo monster kings, there were still quite a number of them. Moreover, there were many ancient mountains in the North Continent, and there were also extremely venomous ancient beasts. Although their intelligence was not comparable to that of demons, some terrifying ancient beasts were no weaker than Grand Luo in terms of combat strength. Although Yi Xian was very strong, he was not strong enough to conquer the entire North Continent. It was simply a fantasy. Big brother, you can't do that. The North Continent. King Qingqiu was about to dissuade him, but before he could finish, he saw Yi Xian's cold eyes. He immediately swallowed the words he was about to say, and his heart was trembling to the extreme at this moment. Clearly, no one could go against Yi Xian's will. This made King Qingqiu come to his senses, and he did not dare to say another word. The other monster kings had complicated expressions. They wanted to dissuade Yi Xian, but when they saw King Qingqiu's pale face, they could only remain silent. Still, there was a troubled look on everyone's face. Suddenly, Yi Xian snorted coldly and said, "Look at how cowardly all of you are. A mere North Continent is enough to make you feel uneasy. Even if you can step into Grand Luo in the future, you will only be mediocre Grand Luo. Moreover, with your current state of mind, even if you are given another 1,000,000 years, you will not be able to step into Grand Luo." In the face of Yi Xian's reprimand, the monster kings' faces turned red, but they did not dare to say anything. Humans need to have an enterprising spirit. Even demons are no exception. As long as you're willing to sweep through the entire North Continent with me, you'll be able to seize endless cultivation resources. It won't be difficult for you to step into the Daluo realm within 10,000 years. Using the carrot and stick to lure others with benefits was Yi Xian's way of commanding people. He knew very well that although he could suppress these monster kings with force, he had to give them some benefits in order to make these monster kings work for him loyally. Grand Luo, the sky-devouring toad murmured, and his eyes were shining. Clearly, Yi Xian's words had moved him. Not only the sky-devouring toad, but the other monster kings were also the same. Because they were all heaven golden immortals, it was their dream to step into Grand Luo. This was also the greatest temptation for them. Spiritual essence of heaven and earth, chaos spirit fruit. Although the North Continent is barren, it does not mean that it does not have these things. As long as we sweep through the North Continent, these things that can increase one's cultivation level will be at our fingertips. Yi Xian seemed to have transformed into a demon. His voice was full of temptation, and it made the monster kings clench their fists. Great greed flashed across their eyes. "Big brother, I am willing to follow you and conquer the North Continent." The sky-devouring toad's voice was muffled, but he was the first to express his attitude. As the saying went, if there was a first, there would be a second, with the sky-devouring toad taking the lead. Although the other monster kings were a little hesitant, they still agreed one after another. Clearly, the temptation of the Grand Luo made them very eager. Greed was the driving force for human progress. Even saints were no exception, let alone the monster kings present. Looking at the excited faces of the 11 monster kings, Yi Xian smiled slightly. He knew that the situation was settled, and this allowed him to gradually issue a few orders. First, train the endless demons, and train them every day to increase the cultivation level of the demons. Second, find out all the demon forces in the North Continent, and target them one by one. Third, conserve energy and arrange the troops. Yi Xian wanted the 11 monster kings to create an army of demons. These 3 orders were remembered by the monster kings. When the sun set, the monster kings also dispersed. They also gathered the endless demons under them, and began to act according to Yi Xian's instructions. On the Tongtian Peak, Yi Xian stood alone under the moon. A cool breeze blew, causing his black hair to flutter in the wind. He looked at the eastern sky, and his pair of eyes seemed to see through the 33 heavens. He murmured, "The North Continent is full of demons. They have killed billions of living beings, and killed Grand Luo monster kings. With the Tribulation Transcender technique as the foundation, when the 9th cycle Zenith Golden Core is completed, it will be the time when I, Yi Xian, step into the Daluo Jingxian." Not far away. Yi Xian smiled strangely. His body was boundless and illusory, and he quietly disappeared from the Tongtian Peak. Chapter 417. Ha! Ha! The demons roared and the mountains shook. The demons that covered the mountains and plains were arranging their troops and setting up formations. All kinds of weapons shone with cold light. They fought against each other, making the entire Tongtian Ridge appear extremely austere. 3 years, a full 3 years had passed. Under Yi Xian's high-pressure methods, the entire sky-piercing ridge was well-disciplined. The phenomenon of demons eating humans no longer appeared, and the cultivation of the endless demons had significantly increased. Inside the 9-demon cave, spiritual plants were planted, and the cave was filled with rich spiritual energy. A 9-string zither was placed on his knees, and Yi Xian was gently plucking the strings. The sound of the zither spread out, and an ethereal aura surrounded him, giving him a sense of leisure. Although Yi Xian was surrounded by demonic light, he was majestic. In the ethereal sound of the zither, he appeared extremely mysterious and unfathomable. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of the zither was like water, rippling until a graceful figure entered the 9-demon cave. The sound of the zither stopped abruptly. "Big brother." King Qingqiu bowed. "What's the matter?" Yi Xian stroked the strings of the zither, and a demonic light rippled out. The 9-string zither disappeared, and he looked up at King Qingqiu. "Big brother, the North Sea Dragon King sent an invitation for us to attend the grand banquet of immortals," King Qingqiu said, and handed a golden invitation to Yi Xian. Yi Xian casually took it. "Grand banquet of immortals?" Yi Xian lightly smiled as he casually opened the invitation. After 10 breaths of time, the invitation in his hand was thrown onto the table by Yi Xian. However, he fell into deep thought. The content of the invitation was very simple and polite. The North Sea Dragon King had heard of Yi Xian's name for a long time, and hoped that Yi Xian would lead the monster kings to the banquet, saying that he had something important to discuss. Of course, the so-called a long time was nonsense. It was just that the North Sea Dragon King had received news that the Tongtian Ridge had changed owners and Blood God King had become a thing of the past. Naturally, he wanted to be on good terms with Yi Xian. It could also be said that he wanted to befriend Yi Xian. "Big brother, are we going or not?" King Qingqiu asked. Yi Xian snapped out of his thoughts and smiled strangely. He said calmly, "The North Sea Dragon King is just an overarching heaven mystic celestial, but he is on the celestial list and has the support of the celestial court. However, he sent out invitations to the various monster kings of the North Continent. This is very interesting, so we naturally have to go and take a look." Looking at the strange expression on Yi Xian's face, King Qingqiu's heart tightened. This feeling made him feel a little uneasy. He then forced a smile and said, "Big brother, although the North Sea Dragon King's cultivation is weak, he has a wide range of friends with the various monster kings of the North Continent. He even calls them brothers. He can be considered to be a person who meets with people everywhere in the North Continent." King Qingqiu paused for a moment and frowned slightly. He then said, "However, the North Sea Dragon King did not only invite you, but also the famous Tongtian monster kings of the North Continent. I'm afraid there's a secret here." "A secret?" Yi Xian smiled sinisterly and said, "No matter what the North Sea Dragon King's purpose is, it doesn't matter. I just want to see which hidden dragons and crouching tigers there are in the North Continent. Go, inform the sky-devouring toad and the torch dragon king that the 3 of you will accompany me to the North Sea Dragon Palace." "Yes, big brother." King Qingqiu did not dare to delay, and hurriedly left the 9-demon cave to inform the other 2. Looking at the back of King Qingqiu, Yi Xian smiled sinisterly. There were some things that he did not say clearly, because Yi Xian did not care about the mere North Sea Dragon Palace at all. He did not care at all about what the North Sea Dragon King wanted to do by inviting the various monster kings. Yi Xian only wanted to take advantage of this immortal gathering to see which powerful Tongtian monster kings were in the so-called North Continent. After all, 3 years had passed, and he was about to set off a bloody storm in the North Continent. Taking advantage of the immortal gathering held by the North Sea Dragon Palace to meet these Tongtian monster kings was also a beneficial thing. On the Tongtian Peak, a black ancient chariot stopped there, and 9 evil dragons were lying on the ground with their reins tied. Under the Torch Dragon King's flattering invitation, Yi Xian stepped onto the black ancient chariot and sat cross-legged. The 3 monster kings got on the chariot one after another and stood on his left and right. "Farewell, big brother." The remaining 9 monster kings bowed, and the demons on the mountain sent them off with roars. The 9 evil dragons roared and soared into the sky with demon clouds, rushing toward the North Sea Dragon Palace amidst loud rumbles. In the sky, demon lights filled the sky, the roars of the evil dragons shook the void, and the demon clouds rolled endlessly. The 3 monster kings released a terrifying demon aura, instantly stirring up the wind and clouds between heaven and earth, making one look at them with awe. The evil dragons cleared the way, the chariot was the carriage, and there were even monster kings accompanying them. Just this kind of momentum alone was rare in the entire North Continent, and it also showed Yi Xian's extremely noble status. Across the sky, demon clouds rolled, and the 9 evil dragons pulled the black ancient chariot, galloping endlessly. It took them half a month to travel 80 million miles, and along the way, they attracted the attention of the demons in the North Continent. They wondered which Tongtian monster king was traveling and had such a terrifying aura. The demons retreated, and the demons were all wiped out. Nothing happened along the way, and no one dared to disturb Yi Xian and the others. The North Sea was vast and boundless, and the dark blue seawater stretched as far as the eye could see. From time to time, waves would sweep up into the sky, and the huge waves would rise and fall one after another, whistling endlessly. If a mortal saw such a scene, they would definitely tremble in fear. "Big brother, the North Sea is just ahead, and we'll be there soon." I remember the last time I came to the North Sea Dragon Palace as a guest was 30,000 years ago. I think the old North Sea Dragon King treated me warmly, and before he left he even gave me many precious treasures from the Tongtian Ridge, said Torch Dragon King with a sinister smile. Rumble. The black ancient chariot rode on clouds, and finally appeared in the sky above the North Sea. Yi Xian smiled at Torch Dragon King's words. But how could the treasures of the North Sea Dragon Palace catch his eye? Caw! Suddenly, a cry that tore through the sky was heard, and a fiery light appeared in the sky in the west, instantly rolling toward Yi Xian's direction. Haha! Brother Torch Dragon, I heard that the master of the Tongtian Ridge has changed. Can you introduce me to him? The fiery light dissipated, and a red jade carriage appeared. The jade carriage was made of scarlet flame jade, and it was pulled by 3 golden flame crystal beasts. Several beautiful demonesses accompanied it on both sides, and among them, a Taoist in a fiery robe was sitting cross-legged in the jade carriage, laughing loudly. Big brother, this is the 9-Yang Cave Master, whose Taoist name is Fire Crow Taoist. His cultivation is at the peak of the all-heaven golden immortal realm, and his true Samadhi fire is extremely powerful. He's an extremely powerful figure in the North Continent. Torch Dragon King bowed and introduced to Yi Xian. Brother Fire Crow, this is my big brother, Kong Li, the new master of the Tongtian Ridge, Torch Dragon King said with a smile, clearly very familiar with Fire Crow Taoist. Chapter 418. Greetings, fellow Taoist Yi Xian. I am Fire Crow Taoist. Fire Crow Taoist's eyes turned, and he stood up from the jade chariot and bowed to Yi Xian. At the same time, terrifying demonic lights flashed in all directions from time to time. There were even notorious demons who had arrived. They naturally saw Yi Xian's chariot. Although they had never seen Yi Xian before, they knew that the Tongtian Ridge had a new owner. Naturally, they were very curious about Yi Xian, and were secretly watching. Unfortunately, Yi Xian ignored the spying of the various demons. However, at this moment, a deep look flashed across his eyes as he looked at Fire Crow Taoist. There was even a hint of doubt in his eyes. Aura, yes, aura. A familiar aura circled around Fire Crow Taoist. This aura was extremely weak, and if not for Yi Xian cultivating the 9 Revolutions Zenith Heaven technique, he would not have been able to sense it in the past. However, this faintly discernible aura was extremely familiar to Yi Xian, but he could not recall where he had seen it before. Yi Xian's stare caused the Fire Crow Taoist's expression to slightly change, and his entire body felt somewhat uncomfortable. This also caused him to force a smile and say, "Fellow Taoist Kong, Brother Torch Dragon is this poor Taoist's good friend, and we are also family. If fellow Taoist needs this poor Taoist in any way, this poor Taoist will definitely not shirk his duty." After saying this, Fire Crow Taoist cupped his hands and bowed to Yi Xian. He was about to leave for the North Sea Dragon Palace, but before he could leave, Yi Xian frowned and said in a low voice, "Wait." Fire Crow Taoist held his breath and slowly turned to look at Yi Xian. His expression was slightly gloomy. One must know that he had greeted Yi Xian on account of Torch Dragon King. However, Yi Xian did not even stand up and return the greeting. This showed that he did not take Fire Crow Taoist seriously at all. However, Fire Crow Taoist also understood that Yi Xian's cultivation must be above his to be able to become the owner of the Tongtian Ridge. This did not make him unhappy, but he was unwilling to talk to Yi Xian. "Is there anything else?" Fire Crow Taoist asked neither arrogantly nor humbly. "Open your Sumeru space." Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the black ancient chariot. His voice was calm, but it was filled with an irresistible power. "What? Fellow Taoist Kong, this poor Taoist does not understand what you are saying." Fire Crow Taoist's face froze. He did not know if he had heard wrongly. However, when Yi Xian repeated his words, Fire Crow Taoist knew that he had not heard wrongly. This caused his aura to turn gloomy, as he looked at Yi Xian with a sinister look. It was no wonder that Fire Crow Taoist was in such a state. Be it gods or demons, everyone's Sumeru space was the most important thing. Not only did it contain one's cultivation skills, it also contained spiritual treasures, pills, and one's wealth. How could one show it to others so easily? And Yi Xian's request was just too much. Even if his cultivation state was not as good as Yi Xian's, how could he agree to Yi Xian's request? If he were to really open up his Sumeru space for Yi Xian to view, wouldn't he, Fire Crow Taoist, be mocked in secret if other demons were to hear about this? How could he accept something as humiliating as this? "Big brother, Fire Crow is your little brother." The Torch Dragon King's expression slightly changed as he hurriedly tried to persuade Yi Xian. However, before he could finish speaking, Yi Xian frowned and immediately swallowed the words from the Torch Dragon King's mouth. Afterwards, he lowered his eyes and didn't make a sound. "Fellow Taoist Kong, although you are the master of the Tongtian Ridge and I, Fire Crow Taoist, cannot afford to offend you, but you want me to open up my Sumeru space. Isn't this going too far?" Fire Crow Taoist said sinisterly. "Going too far?" Yi Xian smiled coldly as he looked at Fire Crow Taoist with great contempt. "I will only give you 3 breaths of time to consider. As long as you open up your Sumeru space, I will naturally not make things difficult for you. However, if you don't know what's good for you, you can forget about leaving today." Domineering and unquestionable. This was Yi Xian's attitude. This caused Fire Crow Taoist's face to turn red as he looked at Yi Xian with great anger. Haha! Suddenly, Fire Crow Taoist laughed out of extreme anger, as the true Samadhi fire burned horribly around him. He said in an extremely sinister voice, "Kongli, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Take him down." Yi Xian did not move, but when his voice fell, the Tongtian Toad and King Qingqiu looked at each other, and suddenly turned into 2 demonic lights that shot towards Fire Crow Taoist. "You people of the Tongtian Ridge have gone too far. I will definitely seek justice from my big brother, and seek justice from you people of the Tongtian Ridge." Fire Crow Taoist was already no match for the sky-devouring toad, not to mention the addition of King Qingqiu. This caused Fire Crow Taoist to escape towards the North Sea Dragon Palace on his demonic cloud. Clearly, There were many great demons in the North Sea Dragon Palace at this moment, and Fire Crow Taoist was definitely the only force he could rely on. Unfortunately, no one could defy Yi Xian's will. Moreover, if the sky-devouring toad and King Qing Qiu let him escape, they would not be able to answer to Yi Xian at all. Therefore, the two of them used their demonic arts to instantly stop Fire Crow Taoist. Fire Crow, obediently open up the simmer space. You should know how powerful I am. The sky-devouring toad's muffled voice caused Fire Crow Taoist's expression to change slightly, because he knew that the sky-devouring toad was not to be trifled with. Not only was the toad's cultivation level at the peak of the All-Heaven realm, but its innate divine ability, the 3 corroding divine water, was also the nemesis of his true Samadhi fire. Good. There was no path to the heavens, no door to the earth, and the two demon kings surrounded him, with a terrifying figure like Yi Xian staring at him. Even though the Fire Crow Taoist was furious, he could only endure it. Calmly, this humble Taoist will remember how you bullied me today. Since you want to see this humble Taoist simmer's space, then look at it to your heart's content. Fire Crow Taoist was extremely humiliated, but he had no choice but to lower his head under the eaves. He opened up the simmer's space, and an extremely rich spiritual energy rippled out from it. Buzz! Suddenly, Yi Xian waved his hand, and a 3-inch cauldron was sucked into his hand. Fire Crow Taoist's expression changed slightly, and he opened his mouth to say something. However, he turned his eyes and shot directly towards the North Sea Dragon Palace, instantly disappearing into the void. No need to chase. Before the sky-devouring toad and King Qing Qiu could give chase, Yi Xian spoke softly, causing the two of them to stop breathing and return to Yi Xian's side. At this moment, all the fiendish demons naturally saw Yi Xian forcing Fire Crow Taoist to flee. However, since it did not concern them, no one dared to stand up against Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian's domineering side was etched in the hearts of all the fiendish demons. Whoosh whoosh, huge waves surged in the North Sea and the seawater strangely parted. A large number of fiendish demons also entered the deep sea and headed towards the North Sea Dragon Palace. In the black ancient chariot, Yi Xian sat cross-legged, fiddling with the small cauldron in his hand. His eyes were deep and puzzled. Strange runes appeared in his hand and continuously merged into the small cauldron. However, the small cauldron did not change at all. Chapter 419. Strange, extremely strange. Yi Xian murmured. Buzz! Suddenly, Yi Xian waved his fingers in the air, and his simmer space opened. A bronze scripture appeared, and when the bronze scripture appeared, something extremely strange happened. The 3-inch cauldron suddenly turned into a black light and merged into the bronze scripture. It was as if it had never existed in the world, but the bronze scripture suddenly had an additional page. This made Yi Xian's expression change greatly, and the aura around him became extremely chaotic. This is? Yi Xian said with a trembling voice. His heart was in turmoil, and his eyes were trembling slightly. This also proved how excited he was. At the same time, above the 9 heavens chaos lingered. A Taoist in green sat cross-legged, and chaotic immortal light surrounded his body. It was as if he had merged with heaven and earth, giving people a feeling that the great Tao was simple. Suddenly, the blue-robed Taoist opened his eyes. His eyes, which had been calm for thousands of years, suddenly changed. Even the chaotic immortal aura around him became chaotic. He quickly pinched his jade-like fingers and divined the future. After dozens of breaths, the Taoist in green was no longer calm. The surrounding heaven and earth were collapsing, and it was as if time and space were distorting. This also proved how shocking the Taoist's heart was. Impossible, absolutely impossible. How could the heavenly void-shattering cauldron appear in the 3 realms? The Taoist in green trembled, as if he had encountered an extremely terrifying thing. The green-robed Taoist's chaotic immortal light covered his face, making it impossible for others to see his expression clearly. However, with him as the center, the world was collapsing and recovering. The great Tao laws were wreaking havoc in the sky, and its earth-shattering might was shocking to the extreme. Aura, yes, this is the aura of the heavenly void-shattering cauldron. It can't be wrong. The Taoist in green trembled as he murmured. He looked at heaven and earth in all directions, and his 3 fingers kept pinching, hoping to deduce where the heavenly void-shattering cauldron was. Unfortunately, after an entire 3 days, the azure-clothed Taoist's expression was gloomy, because he was utterly unable to deduce where the heaven-void cauldron was. If it wasn't for him sensing that flash of vital energy, he wouldn't have sensed that the heaven-void cauldron had appeared in the 3 dimensions. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. As long as the heaven-shattering cauldron doesn't fall into Yi Xian's hands, everything is still under my control. The Taoist in indigo smiled coldly. He closed his eyes and quietly melted into the chaos. Above the North Sea, Yi Xian held the bronze scripture in his hand in a daze. On the extra page of the scripture, a mysterious jade cauldron was engraved on it, and it was releasing an extremely familiar aura to Yi Xian, because this aura was the aura of the undying immortal scripture. But it was a little different. It was vast and ancient, and the flow of time. At a glance, it was as if one's soul had been sucked into it. This aura didn't exist in the 3 dimensions, and made people feel that it was profound and mysterious. Even the Daoyuo Jindan in Yi Xian's sea of consciousness was slightly throbbing. Suddenly, Yi Xian put the bronze scripture into his Sumeru space, and his entire being became calm. Only his mind was rippling, and after a full 10 breaths of time, he spat out a mouthful of turbid air, and finally stabilized his emotions. When the Fire Crow Taoist appeared, Yi Xian faintly felt a familiar aura from the other party's Sumeru space. Although this aura was very weak, it was as if it was calling out to him. Yi Xian believed that if he was 1,000 miles away from the Fire Crow Taoist, he might not be able to sense this aura. However, the Fire Crow Taoist just had to express goodwill and greet him, so this aura naturally aroused his curiosity. After taking the small cauldron from the Fire Crow Taoist's Sumeru space, an extremely familiar feeling emerged in Yi Xian's mind. Yi Xian was finally certain that this jade cauldron was closely related to the undying immortal scripture. Sure enough, when he took out the bronze scripture, the small cauldron and the bronze scripture merged into one, and an extra page of scripture appeared on the bronze scripture. This also confirmed Yi Xian's guess. However, Yi Xian didn't know what this extra page of scripture was, but he had a feeling that this page of scripture was definitely not simple. However, he was now in the sky above the North Sea, so he naturally didn't have the time to study this page of scripture. He could only wait until the matter in the North Sea was settled, and then carefully study this extra page of scripture to see what mysteries it held. This was because Yi Xian knew that the bronze scripture was also called the undying immortal scripture. All his cultivation methods and secret techniques came from this scripture. When Yuan Ling taught him the undying immortal scripture, he spent a full 3 years to comprehend this bronze scripture. Only then did he accidentally obtain the taboo chapter, which was also the general outline of the undying immortal scripture. At that time, he was still young, and was too ignorant on the cultivation path. However, as his cultivation improved day by day, until now, he had stepped into the threshold of using strength to prove his Tao. He had a feeling that the undying immortal scripture was not complete, but he couldn't tell where it was incomplete. Until today, when this scene appeared, Yi Xian instantly understood that the undying immortal scripture was indeed incomplete, and this extra page must be a part of the undying immortal scripture, and an extremely important part. Moreover, Yi Xian had a feeling that even though the bronze scripture had an extra page, it was still incomplete. This mysterious cauldron was definitely not the only one, and probably contained a great secret. The bronze scripture and the heaven-destroying halberd were the 2 things that Yuan Ling valued the most. The heaven-destroying halberd recognized Yi Xian as its master, and the bronze scripture had always been tightly grasped by Yuan Ling. If Yi Xian hadn't fought with Yuan Ling all the way from the human realm to the earth immortal realm, and destroyed Yuan Ling's doppelganger, the bronze scripture definitely wouldn't have fallen into his hands. Yi Xian also knew that Yuan Ling was definitely an extremely terrifying figure in the 3 realms. Even if he wasn't a saint, he probably wasn't too far off. Yuan Ling was only one of his doppelgangers, so how could something that he valued so much be simple? Big brother, what's wrong? The sky-swallowing toad probed. The other two monster kings also looked at him in surprise, because in their eyes, their big brother was always calm and composed no matter what he encountered. They had never seen Yi Xian's emotions fluctuate like this. Of course, the three monster kings weren't stupid. When the small cauldron and the bronze scripture merged into one, the three of them naturally noticed this. However, the three of them knew what to ask and what not to ask, so naturally, they wouldn't pry into Yi Xian's secrets. Nothing. Yi Xian calmed his fluctuating emotions, and his voice regained its calm. However, a hint of joy flashed across his eyes. This trip to the North Sea this time, just the small cauldron that he had obtained by chance made this trip worthwhile. Let's go and take a look at the North Sea Dragon Palace. Let's see how many Tongtian monster kings are here in the North Continent. Yes, big brother. The three monster kings answered softly. The 9 evil dragons pulled the black ancient chariot down with a loud rumble, directly parting the boundless sea water and swimming towards the North Sea Dragon Palace. Chapter 420. The North Sea was boundless, and its water was icy cold. It split into waves and churned for thousands of miles. 9 evil dragons pulled the black ancient chariot and roamed in the deep sea. The blazing demonic light covered Yi Xian's chariot, causing a large number of sea creatures to retreat. There were even prawn soldiers and crab generals leading the way. It was Yi Xian's first time entering the bottom of the sea. The surrounding water spiritual energy was extremely rich. Clearly, the bottom of the sea was a paradise for the sea creatures. They could also unleash strength far beyond their own. At this moment, the 3 demon kings accompanying Yi Xian, the sky-swallowing toad, and the torch dragon king were close to the water spiritual energy, and naturally did not feel any discomfort. On the other hand, the Qing Qiu king's true form was a green fox. His cultivation was slightly suppressed in the bottom of the sea, but it was not much of a problem. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the black ancient war chariot. He cultivated the immortal scripture, and his cultivation method was strange and unfathomable. Naturally, he wouldn't be affected by the water spirit energy, but along the way, Yi Xian discovered that there was a large amount of treasures hidden beneath the North Sea. The Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas was rich. This was not just a saying. Although it could not be compared to the celestial court in Buddhism, it was much better than some blessed grotto heavens. It was a pity that although the dragon clan controlled the 4 seas and had endless treasures, they were still controlled by the celestial court. They were no longer as glorious as before. At the beginning of the world, all living things were born. During the great tribulation of the dragon phoenix, the dragon clan was the 2 main characters of the world. It's a pity that they ended up like this. Yi Xian sighed. That's right. Legend has it that when the primordial world was first created, the dragon clan was blessed by nature. They were born in the golden immortal realm of the all-heaven heaven. There were countless of them in the zenith heaven realm. If not for the fall of the ancestral dragon, the dragon clan would not have ended up like this. After all, the torch dragon king also had the bloodline of the dragon clan. This made him sigh helplessly. Big brother, I've heard that the dragon clan has declined to this extent because of the battle of the dragon phoenix tribulation. The primordial world was severely damaged and was cursed by the heavenly Tao. Since then, no one from the dragon clan has been able to step into the zenith heaven realm. The sky-devouring toad interrupted. Yi Xian nodded slowly at the mention of the dragon race's glory. He had naturally heard of the great tribulation of the dragon phoenix, but there was one thing he did not understand. The dragon race was blessed by the heavens, but after endless time, why had they become so weak that not a single grand heavenly was born in the 3 realms of heaven, earth and man? In Yi Xian's opinion, it was nothing more than a joke, if it was a curse of the heavenly Tao. One had to know that the heavenly Tao was impartial and emotionless. Unless Tao ancestor Hong Jun personally took action, Yi Xian did not believe in nonsense like a curse of the heavenly Tao. Of course, Yi Xian wasn't curious enough to inquire about such secrets, because whether the dragon race declined or flourished had nothing to do with him. While they were chatting, a vast crystal palace appeared in front of Yi Xian's eyes. This made the 9 evil dragons roar and pull Yi Xian and the rest towards the dragon palace. The Crystal Palace. As the name suggested, it was made of deep-sea golden crystal. Only the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had this material. It was impossible to find it on land. Of course, this material was extremely sturdy. It wouldn't decay even after millions of years. Although it couldn't be used as a material for refining weapons, it was most suitable for building palaces and pavilions. The door of the Crystal Palace opened wide. Shrimp soldiers and crab generals stood on both sides. There were even clam girls welcoming guests with smiles. From time to time, demons would laugh as they entered the Dragon Palace. Rumble! The 9 evil dragons roared as they approached. When the black ancient chariot stopped in front of the Dragon Palace's door, Prime Minister Turtle walked towards Yi Xian, and the rest with a flattering smile on his face. Greetings, great sage Beichen. The Dragon King has been waiting for a long time. Please. Prime Minister Turtle bowed with a flattering smile. Seeing that only Prime Minister Turtle was there to welcome them, Torch Dragon King's face turned cold. He said, "My elder brother is here in person, but the North Sea Dragon King doesn't welcome him personally. Are you looking down on my elder brother?" Hearing Torch Dragon King's scolding, Prime Minister Turtle's expression changed slightly. He quickly bowed and said, "Torch Dragon King, please don't blame me. It's just that there are many guests at the grand banquet. My Dragon King is entertaining the guests, and specially ordered me to come and welcome you. If there's anything I haven't done, my Dragon King will personally apologize to you after the grand banquet." This old Dragon King of the North Sea, the sky-swallowing toad pouted, and was about to reprimand him. However, before he could finish, Yi Xian interrupted him. "All right, we're guests and he's the host. How can we steal the host's attention?" "Elder brother is right." The sky-swallowing toad bowed with a flattering smile. "Thank you for your understanding, great sage. My Dragon King has been waiting for you for a long time. Please." Prime Minister Turtle sighed softly, and hurriedly led the way for Yi Xian. However, the old turtle was distracted and secretly peeked at Yi Xian from the corner of his eyes. Obviously, the sky-swallowing toad was also a well-known figure in the North Continent. Since the sky-swallowing toad was so respectful to Yi Xian, it was obvious that this person was no ordinary person. Soon, under the guidance of Prime Minister Turtle, everyone passed through the crystal passageway. A vast dragon palace appeared in front of Yi Xian and the others. Resplendent golden light shone as spiritual qi surged. The floor was paved with crystals with ancient patterns. White jade tables were laid out across the floor. Hundreds of fiendish demons sat cross-legged on them. In the center, the North Sea Dragon King sat on the main seat. He was holding a cup of wine and toasting the Demon King's present. Great Sage Beichen of the Tongtian Mountains has arrived. As the shrimp soldier's voice echoed in the hall, the space suddenly became quiet. Everyone looked in Yi Xian's direction. Among the hundreds of Demon Kings, the weakest one was a grand unity mystic Immortal. The strongest one was at the peak of the All-Heaven realm. There were even Demon Kings who were half a step away from entering the Zenith Heaven realm. They occupied 1/5 of the forces in the North Continent. Looking at the hundreds of Demon Kings in front of him, if Yi Xian did not know that he had arrived at the North Sea Dragon Palace, he would have thought that he had entered the lair of some super demon force. The hundreds of Demon Kings were all scrutinizing Yi Xian. Some smiled and nodded at Yi Xian to express their goodwill. Some looked at him with disdain. There were even Demon Kings who looked at him coldly. It could be said that they were all different. Haha. Suddenly, a hearty laugh was heard and broke the silence. The North Sea Dragon King walked quickly toward Yi Xian and said in an extremely friendly voice, "You must be Daoist Kongli, right? Ao Shun has not been a good host today. Please forgive me. Please take a seat." Ao Shun welcomed him with a smile. "Don't mention it, Daoist Ao." Yi Xian smiled and walked forward slowly. The 3 Demon Kings followed closely behind him. When Yi Xian and the rest arrived at the front, they saw that 12 of the 16 white jade tables were already filled with people. There were only 4 empty seats left. They were obviously reserved for Yi Xian and the rest. Suddenly a cold snort was heard. Fire Crow Taoist, who had been threatened by Yi Xian, was sitting cross-legged at the side. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely unfriendly gaze. Big brother, this is the great sage Baichen who forced me to open the Sumeru space and took away the treasure I had just obtained. Please help me. Firecrow Taoist was speaking angrily to a black-robed Taoist. Clearly this was his so-called backing. Chapter 421. The black-clothed Taoist had a pale complexion and a thin body. He looked like a young man, but his eyebrows were silver-white. At this moment, he was resting with his eyes closed. He only opened his eyes and glanced at Yi Xian indifferently, then closed them again. Today, Taoist Ao Shun invited us to the banquet. As a guest, we can't break the rules of the Dragon Palace. Wait until we get out of the Crystal Palace. I'd like to see how powerful the idiot who dares to call himself a great saint is. How dare he humiliate the people of the fallen fairy cave. The black-clothed Taoist's voice was not loud. He glanced at Yi Xian coldly, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. A cold killing intent flashed in his eyes, which made the other demon kings smile strangely, as if they were waiting to see a good show. King Yinglong? When he saw the black-clothed Taoist, Zhu Long King's expression changed greatly, and a strong sense of fear flashed in his eyes. It seems that you still recognize me. Not bad, not bad. King Yinglong smiled and glanced at Zhu Long King indifferently. Then, he closed his eyes and did not say anything, but it made Zhu Long King and the sky-swallowing toad look serious. Brother, King Yinglong is the master of the fallen fairy cave. He has 36 demon kings under him, and the weakest among them is an all-heaven Xian Immortal. This person's cultivation is extremely unpredictable, and his divine sense is very strange. There are rumors that he has already stepped into the Daluo realm. Brother, you have to be careful. The sky-swallowing toad secretly transmitted a message to Yi Xian. Unfortunately, Yi Xian wasn't moved by the sky-swallowing toad's reminder. From beginning to end, he didn't even glance at King Yinglong. However, when he opened and closed his eyes, a cold light quietly flashed past, and the corner of his mouth faintly curved into a strange smile. As the saying goes, one can wear out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance. Yi Xian had been looking for a Daluo realm demon king all over the North Continent, but he could not find one. How could he not be happy when someone came to him? Yi Xian had already memorized this person's aura. It was impossible for him to escape the North Sea Dragon Palace, even if he wanted to. All the monsters gathered together, and the demonic light rippled, making this space extremely strange. However, the North Sea Dragon King didn't feel anything. Instead, he raised his cup and toasted the monster kings present. Fellow Taoists, you have come from afar to participate in this feast of immortals. You have given me Ao Shun face. Let this old dragon toast you all. When the North Sea Dragon King proposed a toast, the demons naturally raised their cups in response. When the first cup of wine was drunk, the demons' gazes all focused on Ao Shun. Clearly these demon kings were not here for nothing. It was only because the North Sea Dragon King said that he had something important to discuss with them. If there were no benefits to be gained, the North Sea Dragon King would not have invited them here. Although fellow Ao is ranked in the celestial class, we can be considered as old friends of many years. There are no outsiders here. I wonder what important matter fellow Ao has invited us here to discuss? The Black Dragon King, an all-heaven golden immortal, was considered a well-known figure in the North Continent. At this moment, he was probing Ao Shun. Clearly, this was also the question in the hearts of the demons. When it came to business, Ao Shun's smile disappeared. His expression was slightly solemn, which made the demons present wait patiently. They knew that the next part was the highlight. Fellow Taoists, have you heard of the Sea of the Northern Underworld? After a full 10 breaths, Ao Shun finally spoke. However, when he finished speaking, the monster kings looked at each other. Their faces were filled with confusion. Clearly, they had never heard of the Sea of the Northern Underworld. However, some of the monster kings, sitting in the front row, were stunned. They slightly clenched their fists and looked at the North Sea Dragon King with surprise. Clearly, the Sea of the Northern Underworld had moved their hearts. The Sea of the Northern Underworld, the ancient divine sea. It is said that it has long been annihilated between heaven and earth. What does the Dragon King mean by this? King Yinglong narrowed his eyes. The demonic light around his body rippled slightly. He was not calm because he vaguely guessed that the North Sea Dragon King was about to mention a great secret. Ao Shun stroked his beard and smiled. If I say that the sea of the northern underworld has not disappeared and is in the deepest part of the North Sea, how would you feel? Buzz. King Yinglong suddenly stood up. The demonic light around his body rippled. However, he also realized that he was abnormal. He sat down calmly again, but there was a hint of anxiety in his eyes when he looked at the North Sea Dragon King. Rock Demon Master. Suddenly, the Torch Dragon King's eyes lit up as he stared at the North Sea Dragon King. The Demon King's presence sucked in a breath of cold air, and the space became eerily silent. If the Monster Kings present were unfamiliar with the sea of the northern underworld, the two words rock were like thunder to their ears. They had heard of this name when they transformed into Monster Kings. Not to mention the Monster Kings present, even Yi Xian had heard of this name. This was because the rock was an ancient Tongtian Almighty. It was said that during the Great Magi Demon War, he fought against 2 Grand Magi alone. In the end, he was besieged by 6 Grand Magi and fell between heaven and earth. To be worthy of the 2 words Demon Master. This also showed that the rock was a supreme existence among the monster race. There is a fish in the northern underworld called the rock. The size of the rock is thousands of miles long. It transformed into a bird called the pung. The back of the pung is thousands of miles long. When it flies in anger, its wings are like the clouds in the sky. Ao Shun said calmly. He looked at the Monster King's expressions, but there was also a hint of excitement in his eyes. The rock could spread its wings for 90,000 miles and soar up to the 9 levels of heaven. This was not just a saying but a real thing. Since the creation of heaven and earth, the rock was an innate life form. There was only one in heaven and earth, and it was the supreme sage to be. The sea of the northern underworld is the place where the rock was born. Although the rock fell in the Great Magi Demon War, a little of his true spirit still returned to the sea of the northern underworld. The sea of the northern underworld has been sealed for countless years, and its inhibition spell began to loosen 100 years ago. According to my estimation, the inhibition spell will disappear in another 10 years. This is also the reason why I invited all of you here. The North Sea Dragon King said tirelessly. At this moment, Yi Xian listened quietly, and there was no change in his expression. However, the Monster Kings present were breathing rapidly, and their eyes were burning with passion. It was obvious that they were not calm at all. Even the 3 Monster Kings who followed Yi Xian here were the same. It was no wonder that the Monster Kings were so excited. The rock was a sage to be, and the sea of the northern underworld was his Taoist field. There must be unimaginable treasures and inheritances in it. If anyone could obtain the rock's inheritance, it would be an opportunity to reach the heavens in a single bound. How could they not be moved? My cultivation is weak, so I naturally don't dare to monopolize the sea of the northern underworld. Moreover, the sea of the northern underworld must be extremely dangerous. I can only invite all of you to go together. Only then can we obtain the Demon Master's inheritance. The North Sea Dragon King said selflessly. Brother, the sea of the northern underworld contains the Rock Demon Master's inheritance. We can't miss it. The Torch Dragon King secretly transmitted his voice, and his voice was extremely anxious. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not respond at all. He only smiled coldly and looked at the North Sea Dragon King with an extremely strange expression. Chapter 422. It was also at this moment that the atmosphere in the main hall became extremely oppressive. There was even a murderous aura that surrounded the hall. Obviously, King Yinglong was taking the opportunity to find fault and establish his prestige. Because among the hundreds of monster kings, he was the only demon king at the Grand Luo realm. He even had 12 golden immortal brothers under him. It could be said that he was completely in control of the entire situation. In fact, King Yinglong's attack on Yi Xian seemed to be because of Fire Crow Taoist, but the real reason was because of the northern underworld sea. One should know that among the hundreds of monster kings, Yi Xian's influence was the strongest. He had 3 monster kings by his side. As long as he suppressed Yi Xian, the other monster kings would naturally not dare to disobey him. The reason why King Yinglong did not allow the monster kings to leave, and instead waited here for 10 years, was because he wanted to monopolize the inheritance of the rock. If he allowed the monster kings to leave and spread the news, it would attract the other demon kings at the Grand Luo realm. This was not the result he wanted to see. The monster kings present were not fools. Naturally, they could tell that King Yinglong was making an example out of them. He was clearly telling them that if they knew their place, he would not mistreat these monster kings after he obtained the inheritance of the rock. However, if they disobeyed, it would mean that they were enemies with King Yinglong. The monster kings naturally understood King Yinglong's intention. Every monster king's expression was extremely ugly, but they did not dare to say anything. However, it was hard to say who was the chicken and who was the monkey. The water rippled and demonic light filled the air. A total of 12 monster kings walked slowly towards Yi Xian. King Yinglong had a smile on his face as he tasted the wine in his cup. He had a feeling that victory was within his grasp. At this moment, the monster kings shook their heads helplessly. They looked at Yi Xian with pity in their eyes. The North Sea Dragon King looked at them indifferently and did not say anything to stop them. It was as if he had expected all of this to happen. King Yinglong, are you trying to start a war with the Tongtian Ridge? The sky-swallowing toad's eyes widened as demonic light rippled out from its body. Its abdomen swelled with a terrifying force, and it looked like it was ready to fight at any moment. Sky-swallowing toad, you are an ancient creature as well. Why are you following Kongli? If you are willing, you can join the cave of fallen immortals. I will not mistreat you, King Yinglong said in a dignified voice. Obviously, he knew the sky-swallowing toad well and wanted to recruit it. Faced with King Yinglong's invitation, the expression on the sky-devouring toad's face changed slightly. He secretly glanced at Yi Xian from the corner of his eyes. However, he discovered that Yi Xian's expression did not change at all. He was leisurely drinking wine. This made the toad's heart skip a beat. He could not help but recall the scene where Yi Xian almost destroyed the Scarlet Flame Heavenly Corpse. The sky-devouring toad did not have any so-called loyalty to Yi Xian. It was just that he was subdued by Yi Xian's unfathomable cultivation base. However, King Yinglong was a real Daluo demon king. Moreover, the enemy was stronger than them. King Yinglong had 12 all-heaven demon kings under his command. No matter how strong Yi Xian was, how could he be a match for King Yinglong and 12 all-heaven demon kings? A difficult problem was placed in front of the sky-devouring toad. This made it look around, not knowing how to choose. Looking at the hesitant expression on the sky-devouring toad's face, King Yinglong smiled. He could tell that the sky-devouring toad was not that loyal to Yi Xian. This made him raise his eyes to King Zhulong and King Qingqiu. With a gentle voice he said, "Both of you can be considered as famous demon kings. How can a mere Tongtian Ridge fulfill your ambitions? If the two of you submit to the Cave of Fallen Immortals today, you can take charge of a cave residence. I will also treat the two of you like brothers." As King Yinglong's words fell, King Zhulong and King Qingqiu's breathing became chaotic. Obviously, they were thinking the same thing as the sky-devouring toad. However, the two of them had personally witnessed the death of King Blood God in the hands of Yi Xian. Deep down, they were extremely fearful of Yi Xian. However, now that King Yinglong and his 12 brothers were here, no matter how strong Yi Xian was, how could he be a match for them? At this moment, Yi Xian took a sip of the wine in his cup. His expression was calm, as if he did not hear King Yinglong instigating his subordinates to betray him. This made King Yinglong frown. He wondered if Yi Xian was just pretending to be calm. Kill them. All of a sudden, Yi Xian finished the wine in his cup and casually threw the cup on the table. His voice was calm, but it fell into the ears of the sky-devouring toad and the other two demon kings. Big brother, can we discuss this at length? The sky-devouring toad still could not make a decision. This made him force a smile. Hee. Yi Xian smiled. His smile was very warm, but when it fell into the eyes of the sky-devouring toad, it made his heart tremble. He lowered his head and did not dare to look into Yi Xian's eyes. Such a scene made King Yinglong's expression change slightly. He knew how powerful the sky-devouring toad was. However, He did not expect that the sky-devouring toad would be so afraid of Yi Xian. This made him extremely surprised. One should know that the sky-devouring toad was an ancient variant like him. Although the sky-devouring toad was only at the peak of the all-heaven realm, its innate divine ability was extremely terrifying. Even if King Yinglong wanted to kill this person, it would be impossible. This was also the reason why King Yinglong personally instigated the sky-devouring toad to betray him. However, now that the sky-devouring toad was so afraid of Yi Xian, King Yinglong's expression changed slightly. He kept looking at Yi Xian, hoping to see what kind of ability Yi Xian had that could make the sky-devouring toad so afraid of him. Sky-devouring toad, do you know the consequences of disobeying my orders? Yi Xian's aura was not obvious, and his voice was calm. However, when the sky-devouring toad heard this, its aura trembled. Suddenly, without waiting for the sky-devouring toad to reply, Fire Crow Taoist stepped out from the crowd and said, "Brother sky-devouring toad, you can rest assured. My brother is the fallen fairy cave master. In the North Continent, he is the great demon of Tongtian. As long as you join my fallen fairy cave, killing Kong Li today will be a piece of cake." After saying this, Fire Crow Taoist looked directly at Candle Dragon King and said, "Brother Candle Dragon, you and I have known each other for many years. You should know what kind of person Brother Yinglong is. On account of our many years of friendship, as long as you turn over a new leaf, Brother Yinglong will definitely not treat you unfairly." At this moment, Candle Dragon King's expression was uncertain. He could naturally see that the current situation was unfavorable for Yi Xian. Moreover, he had offended Yi Xian before. Naturally, he was extremely tempted by King Yinglong's invitation. "Greetings, Brother Yinglong." Candle Dragon King was a fence-sitter. He would go wherever the wind blew. He would not be loyal to Yi Xian. Moreover, he could see the current situation clearly. Naturally, he would choose the side that was advantageous to him. "Haha, good. King Yinglong laughed out loud. His eyes were filled with pride. He said, "Brother Candle Dragon, you are the one who understands. Since you are willing to acknowledge me as your brother, I will naturally not treat you unfairly." Candle Dragon King took a step forward and instantly appeared beside King Yinglong. He even bowed and said, "Brother, this Kong Li has been bullying me for a long time. I have been dissatisfied with him for a long time. However, this person's cultivation is strange. I am no match for him at all. If not for you saving me today, I don't know how long I would have been enslaved by Kong Li." Chapter 423. It was also at this moment that the atmosphere in the main hall became extremely oppressive. There was even a murderous aura that surrounded the hall. Obviously, King Yinglong was taking the opportunity to find fault and establish his prestige. Because among the hundreds of monster kings, he was the only demon king at the Grand Luo realm. He even had 12 golden immortal brothers under him. It could be said that he was completely in control of the entire situation. In fact, King Yinglong's attack on Yi Xian seemed to be because of Fire Crow Taoist, but the real reason was because of the northern underworld sea. One should know that among the hundreds of monster kings, Yi Xian's influence was the strongest. He had 3 monster kings by his side. As long as he suppressed Yi Xian, the other monster kings would naturally not dare to disobey him. The reason why King Yinglong did not allow the monster kings to leave, and instead waited here for 10 years, was because he wanted to monopolize the inheritance of the rock. If he allowed the monster kings to leave and spread the news, it would attract the other demon kings at the Grand Luo realm. This was not the result he wanted to see. The monster kings present were not fools. Naturally, they could tell that King Yinglong was making an example out of them. He was clearly telling them that if they knew their place, he would not mistreat these monster kings after he obtained the inheritance of the rock. However, if they disobeyed, it would mean that they were enemies with King Yinglong. The monster kings naturally understood King Yinglong's intention. Every monster king's expression was extremely ugly, but they did not dare to say anything. However, it was hard to say who was the chicken and who was the monkey. The water rippled and demonic light filled the air. A total of 12 monster kings walked slowly towards Yi Xian. King Yinglong had a smile on his face as he tasted the wine in his cup. He had a feeling that victory was within his grasp. At this moment, the monster kings shook their heads helplessly. They looked at Yi Xian with pity in their eyes. The North Sea Dragon King looked at them indifferently, and did not say anything to stop them. It was as if he had expected all of this to happen. King Yinglong, are you trying to start a war with the Tongtian Ridge? The sky-devouring toad glared at King Yinglong. Demonic light rippled out from his body, and his abdomen was bulging. Judging from his posture, it seemed like he would start a war at any moment. Sky-devouring toad, you're also a primitive species. Why are you following Kong Li? As long as you're willing to join the fallen immortal cave, I will not mistreat you. King Yinglong, as he was familiar with the sky-devouring toad, he had the intention to recruit him. Was Yi King's name? Yi. The sky-devouring toad did not have any so-called loyalty to Yi Xian. It was just that he was subdued by Yi Xian's unfathomable cultivation. King Yinglong, on the other hand, was a real Daluo demon king. Moreover, King Yinglong had 12 all-heaven demon kings under his command. No matter how strong Yi Xian was, how could he be a match for King Yinglong and 12 all-heaven demon kings? The sky-devouring toad was faced with a difficult problem. His eyes darted around as he did not know how to choose. Looking at the sky-devouring toad's hesitant expression, King Yinglong smiled. He could tell that the sky-devouring toad was not that loyal to Yi Xian. He looked at Candle Dragon King and Qing Long and said gently, "Both of you are famous demon kings. How can a mere Tongtian Ridge fulfill your ambitions? If both of you submit to the fallen immortal cave, you can take charge of a cave residence. I will treat both of you like brothers." As King Yinglong's words fell, Candle Dragon King and Qing Qiu King's breaths became chaotic. Obviously, they had the same thoughts as the sky-devouring toad. However, both of them had personally witnessed the death of Blood God King in the hands of Yi Xian. They were extremely fearful of Yi Xian. However, with King Yinglong and his 12 brothers, no matter how strong Yi Xian was, how could he be a match for them? At this moment, Yi Xian tasted the wine in his cup. His expression was calm, as if he did not hear King Yinglong instigating his subordinates to betray him. This made King Yinglong frown. He did not know if Yi Xian was pretending to be calm. Kill them. Suddenly, Yi Xian finished the wine in his cup, and casually threw the cup on the table. His voice was calm, but it fell into the ears of the sky-devouring toad, and the other 2 demon kings. Big brother. Can we? The sky-devouring toad still could not make a decision. He forced a smile and asked. Hee. Yi Xian smiled. His smile was very warm. However, when it fell into the eyes of the sky-devouring toad, it made his heart tremble. He lowered his head and did not dare to look into Yi Xian's eyes. Such a scene made King Yinglong's expression change slightly. He knew how powerful the sky-devouring toad was. However, he did not expect the sky-devouring toad to be so afraid of Yi Xian. This made him extremely surprised. One should know that the sky-devouring toad was an ancient variant like him. Although the sky-devouring toad was only at the peak of the all-heaven realm, its innate divine ability was extremely terrifying. It was impossible for him to kill this person, even if he wanted to. This was also the reason why he personally instigated the sky-devouring toad to betray him. However, when he saw the sky-devouring toad being so afraid of Yi Xian, King Yinglong's expression changed slightly. He kept looking at Yi Xian, hoping to see what kind of ability Yi Xian had to make the sky-devouring toad so afraid of him. Sky-devouring toad, do you know the consequences of disobeying my orders? Yi Xian's aura was not strong and his voice was calm. However, when the sky-devouring toad heard it, his aura trembled. Suddenly, without waiting for the sky-devouring toad to reply, Fire Crow Taoist stepped out from the crowd and said, "Fellow sky-devouring toad, you can rest assured. My brother is the fallen fairy cave master. In the North Continent, he is the great demon of Tongtian. As long as you join my fallen fairy cave, killing Kong Li today will be a piece of cake." After Fire Crow Taoist finished speaking, he looked directly at Candle Dragon King and said, "Brother Candle Dragon, you and I have known each other for many years. You should know what kind of person Brother Yinglong is. On account of our many years of friendship, as long as you turn over a new leaf, Brother Long will definitely not treat you unfairly. At this moment, Candle Dragon King's expression was uncertain. He naturally knew that the current situation was not good for Yi Xian. Moreover, he had offended Yi Xian before. Naturally, he was extremely tempted by Ing Long's invitation. Greetings, Brother Ing Long. Candle Dragon King was a fence-sitter. He would go wherever the wind blew. He would not be loyal to Yi Xian. Moreover, he had seen the current situation clearly. Naturally, he would choose the side that was beneficial to him. Haha, good. Ing Long laughed out loud. His eyes were filled with pride. He said, Brother Candle Dragon, you are the one who understands. Since you are willing to acknowledge me as your brother, I will naturally not treat you unfairly. Candle Dragon King took a step forward and instantly appeared beside Ing Long. He even bowed and said, Brother, this Kong Li has been bullying me for a long time. I have been dissatisfied with him for a long time. However, this person's cultivation is strange. I am no match for him at all. If not for you saving me today, I don't know how long I would have been enslaved by Kong Li. Chapter 424. Shameless and Shameless. This was Torch Dragon King's nature. Torch Dragon, how dare you betray Big Brother? King Qingqiu rebuked loudly, her face flushed. Little sister, Kong Li is extremely overbearing. He has been bullying us ever since he came to the Tongtian Ridge. Today, Big Brother Ing Long is here. So it's time for us to break away from him. Little sister, why don't you quickly come and greet Big Brother Ing Long? Torch Dragon King reprimanded. Hearing Torch Dragon King's words, King Qingqiu's expression changed. Clearly, she was struggling internally, but she was still hesitant, not knowing if she should betray Yi Xian. He's asking you to go over. Suddenly, Yi Xian lightly smiled, and his voice was very calm. Hearing Yi Xian's words, King Qingqiu suddenly came to her senses. When she saw the contempt in Yi Xian's eyes, her expression changed, and the scene of Blood God King's crushing defeat appeared in her mind. Take a gamble. King Qingqiu reprimanded in her heart, and her eyes were filled with madness. This was because she couldn't see through Yi Xian from the beginning to the end. Moreover, the Blood God King lost in a baffling manner back then, but in the end, he disappeared from the world. This caused her to be extremely curious about Yi Xian, and her heart was filled with great reverence. I will never betray Big Brother. I'm willing to live and die with Big Brother today. King Qingqiu bowed, and the chaotic demonic light calmed down at this moment. She stood directly behind Yi Xian, no longer hesitating. Little sister, are you crazy? Such a scene made Torch Dragon King's expression change, and he shouted angrily at King Qingqiu. Clearly, King Qingqiu's foolish behavior greatly upset him, and he could not understand why King Qingqiu was so stupid to choose to side with Yi Xian. Sky-swallowing toad, what do you think? Yi Xian said indifferently. At this moment, the sky-devouring toad's eyes were bulging, and his aura was extremely chaotic. The Torch Dragon King had chosen to betray him, while the Qingqiu King still chose to follow Yi Xian. This made him extremely hesitant, but when he saw the Qingqiu King constantly giving him meaningful glances, the sky-devouring toad gritted his teeth, and finally made a decision. Big Brother, you must be joking. I have always been loyal to Big Brother, and have never thought of betraying you. If anyone wants to become Big Brother's enemy today, I will definitely fight by your side even if my soul is destroyed. The sky-devouring toad bowed, and its voice was resolute and decisive. Actually, the sky-devouring toad really wanted to submit to King Ing Long, and he had already planned to do so. However, when King Qingqiu made his stance clear, he immediately changed his mind. Who was King Qingqiu? She was an extremely intelligent woman. She must have her reasons for choosing to stand on Yi Xian's side. Compared to King Qingqiu, Torch Dragon King was far inferior in terms of intelligence and shrewdness. The sky-devouring toad admitted that he was not intelligent, but he strongly believed that King Qingqiu would not harm him. This was also the reason why he chose to stand on Yi Xian's side. Moreover, King Qingqiu kept giving him meaningful glances. Obviously, his big brother was not as simple as he seemed. Bang! There was a loud noise and the water rippled. King Ing Long smashed the table in front of him with his palm. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he looked at Yi Xian and the other two. I have already given the two of you a chance. Since the two of you don't know how to cherish it, don't blame me for being ruthless. Kill them. King Yinglong waved his hand, and the 12 all-heaven demon kings smiled ferociously. A terrifying demonic light appeared around them, and they had already vaguely surrounded Yi Xian and the other two. The Torch Dragon King's expression changed, but he did not attack. Instead, he took a few steps back and stared at Yi Xian nervously. Obviously, betraying Yi Xian made the Torch Dragon King extremely cautious. He was deeply afraid that Yi Xian would attack him and kill him here. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not look at the Torch Dragon King from the beginning to the end. He held his chin with one hand and looked at the Demon Kings present mockingly. Then, he tilted his head and looked at the sky-devouring toad, and the sky-devouring toad. His voice was strange and mocking as he said, "They want to kill your big brother. As my brother and sister, what do the two of you think we should do? It's just 12 demon kings. I alone am enough. Big brother, you can just watch at ease." The sky-swallowing toad let out a loud roar. Its terrifying mouth split open and turned into a ferocious maw. An extremely terrifying dark light spread out with unimaginable power and swept towards the 12 demon kings. Be careful. This is the 3 corrosive divine water, the sky-devouring toad's innate divine power. King Yinglong warned with a hint of fear in his eyes. Rumble. The water waves exploded as the 12 all-heaven demon kings attacked together. The terrifying demonic light condensed together, and the vast and unparalleled power directly turned the 3 corrosive divine water into nothingness. Bang! The sky-devouring toad flew backward and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he was at the peak of the all-heaven realm, and his innate divine power was extremely terrifying, he was no match for the 12 all-heaven demon kings. "I'll help you," King Qingqiu shouted loudly. Boundless demonic light spread out, and instantly held the sky-devouring toad back. She casually blasted out a demonic technique, and formed a demonic light barrier to stand side by side with the sky-devouring toad. "Sister, be careful." The sky-devouring toad wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and looked at the 12 all-heaven demon kings, with an extremely serious expression. If not for Yi Xian, the sky-devouring toad would have fled in the face of the 12 all-heaven demon kings. Some might ask why the former blood god king, and the current King Yinglong, were afraid of the sky-devouring toad. The reason was actually very simple. The sky-devouring toad was a primal mutant, and would sooner or later enter the realm of Daluo Jingxian. Moreover, his innate divine power, the 3 corrosive divine water, was something that even Daluo Jingxian would not dare to touch. The most important problem was that the sky-devouring toad's escape technique was so powerful that even a first firmament demon king could not stop him. If the sky-devouring toad were to enter the realm of Daluo in the future, wouldn't he have provoked a great enemy for no reason? However, today was different. The entire North Sea Dragon Palace had been secretly sealed by King Yinglong, and the 12 all-heaven demon kings were watching. No matter how powerful his escape technique was, there was no way he could escape from the North Sea Dragon Palace. Moreover, since he was on Yi Xian's side, he was also waiting for Yi Xian to make a move. Otherwise, why would he choose to support Yi Xian? Kill them. King Yinglong's voice was cold. The 12 all-heaven demon kings attacked, and blasted out all kinds of demonic techniques. They immediately clashed with the sky-devouring toad and King Qingqiu. Bang! 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 The dragon palace shook and the hall was broken. A great battle between the demon kings had begun. The dazzling and terrifying demonic light swept across all directions. The terrifying aftershock turned countless members of the Sea clan into blood mist, and died tragically in the deep sea. The battle continued above the dragon palace. Under the terrifying siege of the 12 all-heaven demon kings, the sky-devouring toad and King Qingqiu were struggling to resist. If the sky-devouring toad was not a primal mutant, and had an innate divine power, the two of them would have been killed by the 12 all-heaven demon kings in an instant. In the dragon palace, the North Sea Dragon King looked on coldly. Although many members of the Sea clan died tragically, it did not affect him at all. However, There was a hint of surprise in his eyes when he looked at Yi Xian. Chapter 425. To be honest, ever since Yi Xian entered the North Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Shun was extremely disappointed with Yi Xian. He initially thought that Yi Xian was a grand heavenly realm expert, but after sensing his aura, he realized that he was not a grand heavenly realm expert, which disrupted his plan. However, what made Ao Shun feel gratified was that King Yinglong's arrival had allowed his plan to go on the right track. However, Ao Shun's mind was extremely uneasy. He had been searching for the source of his uneasiness. When he saw Yi Xian, he finally knew where his uneasiness came from. Calm and collected, this was the attitude that Yi Xian displayed. Ao Shun's eyes froze as he constantly scrutinized Yi Xian. He really could not understand. King Yinglong was clearly a grand heavenly demon king, and was staring at him with malicious eyes. Why was this great sage of the North Star not only fearless, but also scornful in his eyes? Thump, 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 the waves of the vast ocean, and the grand heavenly demon light. King Yinglong slowly walked towards Yi Xian, with a gentle smile on his face. When he arrived in front of Yi Xian, he looked at Yi Xian in a condescending manner. Calmly, I don't want to make things difficult for you. As long as you're willing to seal your cultivation base, you and your two brothers can leave the North Sea Dragon Palace. After I leave the North Sea Dragon Palace, you'll still be the master of the Tongtian Ridge. King Yinglong advised. Brother Yinglong, you can't do this. This Kong Li must die. Torch Dragon King's face instantly turned pale, and even his voice was trembling. It was no wonder that Torch Dragon King reacted this way. After all, if Yi Xian did not die, he would definitely cause trouble for him in the future. Recalling Yi Xian's terrifying means, Torch Dragon King was extremely terrified. Brother, this person stole my treasure. How can you let him go so easily? Fire Crow Taoist also anxiously advised. Obviously, he had always hated Yi Xian for stealing his treasure. Because of that, he had always hated Yi Xian. Unfortunately, King Yinglong did not pay any attention to their advice. Instead, he looked at Yi Xian calmly and waited for Yi Xian to make his choice. In fact, King Yinglong really wanted to kill Yi Xian. However, he had great scruples about it. He knew that he could injure or imprison Yi Xian, but he could not harm Yi Xian's life. The reason was very simple. It was because Yi Xian had transformed into a 5-colored peacock, and the 5-colored peacock race was extremely rare in the world. The Mahamayuri of the Western Spirit Mountain was even more terrifying. King Yinglong's was Mahamayuri, a demon king, the great heavenly demon. That was the outcome, was definitely not the outcome demon king king. King. Demon king king a king. No, the was a demon 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 king demon 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 king was demon demon. Aware. From the beginning to the end, King Yinglong had never thought of killing Yi Xian. He only wanted to imprison Yi Xian for a period of time. Once he obtained the inheritance of the Kuanpeng, he would naturally release Yi Xian. That was what he really wanted to do. As for the fact that Yi Xian stole a treasure from Fire Crow Taoist, it was just a small matter. King Yinglong was also using this as an excuse to make things difficult for Yi Xian. Silence, silence, extreme silence. King Yinglong was waiting for Yi Xian's reply. He was very confident that Yi Xian would make a wise choice. After all, he was a Grand Luo Demon King. Yi Xian did not have the strength to resist at all. The group of demons watched coldly from the side. The North Sea Dragon King shook his head helplessly. Obviously, everyone knew that Yi Xian would definitely lower his head to King Yinglong. After all, his cultivation base was no match for King Yinglong. Boring to the extreme. Suddenly, under everyone's astonished gaze, Yi Xian slowly stood up. His eyes that were looking at King Yinglong gradually turned cold. Originally, I'm not a person who likes to kill. However, you just had to come to me and seek death. Tell me, shouldn't I fulfill your wish? Yi Xian smiled ferociously. The way he looked at King Yinglong was as though he was looking at a dog that was about to be slaughtered. Whoa! A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. When Yi Xian's voice fell, the demon kings and Ao Shun at the scene burst into an uproar. They even took a breath of cold air. The way they looked at Yi Xian was as though they were looking at a madman. Is this Kong Li crazy? Doesn't he know that King Yinglong is a grand luo? Crazy. He's definitely crazy. How dare he talk to King Yinglong like that? Even if his true form is a five-colored peacock, King Yinglong will never let him go. The group of demons discussed in horror. Suddenly, the space became extremely noisy. Ao Shun, the Dragon King of the North Sea, stared at Yi Xian. There was a trace of horror in his eyes. Kong Li, do you know what you're talking about? King Yinglong clenched his fists tightly. His face was extremely gloomy. An extremely terrifying Grand Luo demon light rippled out. His murderous intent locked onto Yi Xian. It was as though he was going to attack Yi Xian at any time. I have to say that you evil dragon are extremely ignorant. Originally, I didn't want to kill you in the North Sea Dragon Palace. However, since you're courting death, I have no choice but to fulfill your wish. Yi Xian smiled coldly. What happened next shocked the group of demons. It even made King Yinglong take 3 steps back. His body was trembling slightly. Bang! 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 The surroundings shook and the water waves exploded. A total of 8 doors appeared. The strange and terrifying immortal light rippled out and trapped the entire North Sea Dragon Palace. The 8 doors of life and death, immortal transformation, heaven and earth reversal, sun and moon reversal. Yi Xian held the inverse immortal formation diagram in his hand. His appearance kept changing. When the light dissipated, Yi Xian's original appearance was revealed. His eyes were filled with extremely cruel and ferocious murderous intent when he looked at King Yinglong. Bang! 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 It was as if the 9 heavens were exploding with thunder. It was as if the sun and moon reversal was happening. When Yi Xian revealed his original appearance, he walked slowly towards King Yinglong. His terrifying immortal light rippled out, causing the group of demons and King Yinglong to be dumbfounded. A silent terror filled the hearts of the group of demons. If it wasn't for the fact that I don't want to cause too much of a commotion and alert the old Jade Emperor of the Celestial Court, you don't have the right to make me use the inverse immortal formation diagram, Yi Xian said coldly. He looked at King Yinglong, as if he was looking at a dead man. The 8 doors of life and death rumbled as they rotated. The sun, moon, and starlight penetrated from the past to the present. The 8 doors of life and death separated the heaven and earth, covering the entire North Sea Dragon Palace. No one could leave, and of course no one could enter. It was because this was the inverse immortal formation diagram, and it contained unfathomable secrets. Even the 4 perfected golden immortals had suffered a loss because of it. This King Yinglong was merely a demon king at the first heavenly layer of perfected immortal realm. So, how could he not shock the group of demons? Die! Yi Xian roared ferociously. When he blasted out his palm, the Daluo golden core in between his eyebrows rotated slightly. A force that did not belong to the 3 realms erupted from his palm. The palm was like the heaven and earth. It was as if it came from the depths of chaos. It instantly blasted the 12 demon kings of all heaven into pieces. The bloody mist that filled the sky from the explosion drifted down. Even their primordial spirits were screaming. Absorb! The 12 golden immortals of all heaven were extremely nutritious. How could Yi Xian let them go? Yi Xian's palm and fingers moved like shuttles. Under the effect of the Calamity Transcender technique, the blood souls of the 12 demon kings of all heaven were instantly condensed together, turning into a blood-colored ball that was sucked into Yi Xian's palm. Then, he looked at King Yinglong with a hideous smile. Chapter 426. The Tribulation Transcender technique was extremely vicious. The 12 golden immortals of all heaven were killed by Yi Xian after their bodies exploded. Even their primordial spirits and cultivation were controlled by the Tribulation Transcender technique, which caused their primordial spirits to scream in agony. Their shrill cries were extremely terrifying. They were suffering unimaginable torture. The demons present watched in horror. Obviously, some of them were scared silly by Yi Xian's means. At this time, the demons' teeth were chattering. King Yinglong's eyes were dull, but his feet were moving backward unconsciously. The North Sea Dragon King's face was pale, and his whole body was limp on the ground. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely horrified expression. Big brother. The sky-swallowing toad and King Qingqiu whistled down. Their faces were flushed red, and their eyes were filled with shock. They simply couldn't believe that a total of 12 all-heaven demon kings had died miserably on the spot under Yi Xian's attack. However, when they returned to Yi Xian's side and saw Yi Xian's original appearance and the inverse celestial formation diagram in Yi Xian's hand, the excitement on their faces disappeared. They were completely stunned on the spot, as if their souls had left their bodies. Yi Xian's appearance was not known by everyone in the three realms, but his fierce reputation could be said to have shocked the three realms. Someone must have seen his portrait, not to mention that the inverse celestial formation diagram was his signature thing. You are the East Pole. King Yinglong's face was pale, and his voice could not stop trembling. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely horrified expression. Yi Xian, the East Pole Emperor, was known by everyone in the three realms. He killed Yang Jian thousands of miles in the sky, suppressed Mount Huagua, and subdued the demon kings of the 72 caves with his own strength, and even defeated the 4 Daoyuo Jingxian in the celestial court. He even crushed the primordial spirit of the demon-sweeping Emperor Jinwu and killed him. Taoist Master Yu Ding, who had betrayed the celestial court, was hunted down by Guanyin of the South Sea and Guangqingzi for hundreds of millions of miles. In the end, Taoist Master Yu Ding, who had killed the 12 ancient golden immortals, disappeared from the heaven, earth, and mortal realms. The name of Yi Xian was incomparably ferocious and unprecedented. Every single thing that King Yinglong did was world-shaking. How could King Yinglong not know about Yi Xian? How could he not know about Yi Xian? At this moment, King Yinglong finally understood why the Tongtian Ridge had a change of master, and why King Blood God, who was clearly a first heavenly level Daoyuo demon king, would die in the hands of Yi Xian. This was because there had never been a Kongli in this world. Kongli was the incarnation of the East Emperor, Yi Xian, and now he was facing a terrifying figure. Not only King Yinglong, but even the sky-devouring toad and King Qingqiu were speechless. They stared blankly at the immortal defying formation in Yi Xian's hand, and stared blankly at Yi Xian's face with trembling hands. King Yinglong's teeth were chattering, and he was forced to take a few steps back. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and the demon light of Daoyuo enveloped him completely. He already had the thought of running away from this place. Yes, he wanted to run away. King Yinglong did not feel ashamed at all. After all, this East Pole Emperor was too terrifying. He killed Yu Ding and destroyed Jinwu, although these 2 Daoyuo Jingxian were only one level higher than him. The gap between them was like the gap between heaven and earth. Moreover, King Yinglong had great self-awareness. If he was in Yi Xian's place, he would be beaten to death in less than 10 breaths of time when facing the siege of 4 Daoyuo Jingxian. At this moment, King Yinglong was retreating in fear. The North Sea Dragon King Ao Shun was speechless. Hundreds of demon kings were trembling as they stared blankly at Yi Xian. As for the sky-devouring toad and King Qingqiu, they had yet to recover from their shock. It was as if they could not believe what they had just seen. The sky-devouring toad and King Qingqiu would never have imagined that the big brother they had acknowledged was actually the infamous East Pole Emperor of legends. This sort of absurd matter was just too terrifying, and the two of them simply could not believe it when they heard about it. I pay my respects to the East Pole Emperor. King Yinglong bowed. Even his voice was trembling. He no longer had the arrogant attitude he had before. Unfortunately, Yi Xian's expression did not change at all in the face of King Yinglong's greeting. Only the corner of his mouth curled into a cruel killing intent. Obviously, this King Yinglong was his superior food. Yi Xian would definitely not let him go. Your Majesty, this little demon did not know your true identity before this. Please forgive me. I hope that your Majesty will be magnanimous and not lower yourself to this little demon's level. King Yinglong pleaded with a trembling voice. He lowered his posture to the extreme. However, he had been retreating silently. At this moment, he had already arrived in front of the palace gate. It was obvious that he was about to escape from this place. Since you're here, don't leave. Yi Xian said coldly. Run. Without any nonsense, he would not risk his life to fight Yi Xian. King Yinglong was not an idiot. He knew that he was no match for Yi Xian. If he did not run now, when would he? Buzz! King Yinglong activated the great heavenly demon light and fled out of the palace gate. However, before he could escape from this palace, Yi Xian's cruel and ferocious voice quietly rang in his ears. Do you think you can escape? Bang! The 8 gates of life and death unleashed its might. The aura of turning immortal into mortal instantly knocked King Yinglong down from the great heavenly realm. A giant palm that blotted out the sky came crashing down, causing the endless North Sea to churn violently. Puff! King Yinglong's sternum caved in. He spat out a mouthful of demon blood. His entire body was slammed to the ground. A powerful suction force was exerted on his body. Before King Yinglong could resist, he was restrained by Yi Xian. Yi Xian was in the 9 transformations of Great Heavenly Realm. Even without the immortal defying formation, he could still suppress King Yinglong with his own strength. However, it would take an extremely long time, and it would cause a huge commotion. At this moment, Yi Xian activated the immortal defying formation to not attract the attention of the outside world. He could suppress King Yinglong in an instant. After all, his current identity was sensitive. He could not let the Jade Emperor and Chanism know that he was in the North Continent. Emperor, please spare my life. Yi Xian pressed his palm on top of King Yinglong's head. The terrifying and strange immortal light rose from his palm, causing King Yinglong to tremble and beg. His voice was trembling. This also proved how terrified he was. Hee. Looking at King Yinglong's humble and pale face, Yi Xian smiled cruelly and said, "Little evil dragon, you could have lived for a few more days. However, you insist on seeking your own death. Naturally, I'll fulfill your wish. Die." Suddenly, Yi Xian roared ferociously. His palm and fingers glowed. It was the light of killing immortals and gods. When his palm landed on King Yinglong's head, King Yinglong let out a shrill and unwilling scream. It made one's heart tremble. "East Emperor, you'll die a horrible death." The Calamity Transcenda technique quietly took effect on King Yinglong's body. This also caused his body to crumble inch by inch. He even let out an extremely vicious curse. However, Yi Xian just looked on indifferently. His eyes and body bloomed with an extremely violent aura. "Ah, kill me. I beg you." King Yinglong's body finally exploded. His cultivation base and Dao fruit were condensed into a blood-red ball by the Calamity Transcender technique. His primordial spirit was howling in pain in the blood-red ball. It was obvious that he was suffering unimaginable torture. The Calamity Transcender technique was extremely vicious and cruel. The person who was subjected to it would suffer the pain of thousands of ants gnawing at his heart. It was also as if thousands of knives were cutting his primordial spirit. It was not something that ordinary creatures could endure. Therefore, the Calamity Transcender technique was extremely vicious and cruel. It was also an extremely evil technique. Chapter 427. The North Sea Dragon Palace sealed the heavens and trapped the earth. The 8 gates of life and death rotated endlessly. No one could think of leaving or entering. The 12 all-heaven demon kings screamed in agony. Even King Winged Dragon was no exception. Their physical bodies were destroyed, and their essence spirits were tortured by the Calamity Transcender technique. The other demons could not bear to look at them. A blood-colored ball buzzed and rotated in Yi Xian's palm. The dazzling blood-colored light illuminated the entire North Sea Dragon Palace, causing the demon kings present to be as silent as cicadas in fear. "Greetings, East Emperor Lord." The North Sea Dragon King, Ao Shun, was the first to come back to his senses. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Yi Xian. His posture was extremely humble. This also caused the other demons to wake up and pay their respects to Yi Xian. For a moment, the entire North Sea Dragon Palace was filled with cheers and all sorts of flattering sounds. However, there was an extremely strange atmosphere that reverberated in the Dragon Palace. "Be big, brother?" The sky-devouring toad's voice was muffled. He could not even close his huge mouth. Clearly, he still could not believe that the East Emperor Lord was his big brother. "Fool, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and pay your respects to your big brother." King Qingqiu was extremely intelligent. Her eyes turned as she hurriedly pulled the sky-swallowing toad to bow to Yi Xian. After that, she calmly stood beside Yi Xian and didn't ask anything. King Qingqiu was smart. Whether this big brother of hers was Kong Li or the East Emperor Lord, it did not matter. That was because they had never betrayed Yi Xian from the beginning. Yi Xian smiled gently. He appreciated King Qingqiu's tactfulness. He liked to deal with smart people, and King Qingqiu was a smart person. Be big brother. I know my mistake. Suddenly, the Torch Dragon King's face paled as he stumbled towards Yi Xian. He suddenly knelt before Yi Xian, and constantly kowtowed towards Yi Xian. He even begged with tears and snot. Looking at the begging Torch Dragon King at his feet, Yi Xian said calmly, "No matter what, you and I are brothers. A worthy younger brother, what are you doing?" As Yi Xian spoke, he personally helped Torch Dragon King up, and even patted the dust off his body affectionately, as if he didn't care about Torch Dragon King's betrayal. Yi Xian's actions caused Torch Dragon King's face to turn pale. How could he not know about Yi Xian's temperament? Torch Dragon King had once heard of the East Emperor Lord's ferocious name, and had seen Yi Xian's ruthless methods. Now that Yi Xian was treating him so kindly, he was afraid that Yi Xian would take his life in the next moment. The Torch Dragon King's body was trembling as he looked at Yi Xian, with an extremely horrified gaze. When he saw King Qingqiu, a wisp of hope surfaced in his eyes. "Sister, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please help me beg Big Brother for mercy. Please." Torch Dragon King cried and begged King Qingqiu. King Qingqiu couldn't bear to see Torch Dragon King beg for help. No matter what, she had been friends with Torch Dragon King for tens of thousands of years, and they usually visited each other frequently. She couldn't bear to see Torch Dragon King die here. "Big Brother," Torch Dragon King was just confused for a moment. "Please give him a chance to redeem himself." King Qingqiu bowed to Yi Xian, hoping that Yi Xian would be merciful and spare Torch Dragon King's life. "Sister, what are you doing? When did Big Brother say that he wanted to kill his brother?" Yi Xian said solemnly, which stunned King Qingqiu. She thought that Yi Xian would definitely be furious, but she didn't expect this outcome. "Big Brother, you?" King Qingqiu bit her lips. "Thank you for sparing my life, Big Brother. Thank you for sparing my life." Torch Dragon King kept wiping the cold sweat off his forehead, and bowed to Yi Xian. Clearly, he was extremely excited that he could escape with his life. "I treat my brothers as my own. Even if you did something wrong, how can I bear to kill you?" Yi Xian sighed, then patted Torch Dragon King's shoulder and said sincerely, "Big Brother, I know my mistake. I was just confused for a moment, and was blinded by lard. I will definitely follow Big Brother in the future, and will never dare to betray you." Torch Dragon King was drenched in cold sweat, and hurriedly expressed his loyalty. "Alright, we're all brothers. I won't blame you." Yi Xian smiled. "Big Brother, I..." Suddenly, without waiting for Torch Dragon King to finish speaking, a terrifying claw pierced through Torch Dragon King's heart, instantly crushing the demon heart in his chest. His demon heart exploded, blood splattered everywhere, and Torch Dragon King screamed in agony. When this scene appeared, all the demons present watched in horror. King Qingqiu was even more dumbfounded, and his body trembled slightly at this moment. "You deserve to die for betraying Big Brother." Suddenly, a ferocious voice sounded. Behind Torch Dragon King, the sky-devouring toad slowly pulled its claw out of Torch Dragon King's heart, and its terrifying mouth split open to 100 feet wide. Under Yi Xian's smiling gaze, the sky-devouring toad swallowed Torch Dragon King. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sky-devouring toad's teeth chewed continuously, and a large amount of demon blood flowed out of the sky-devouring toad's mouth. When Torch Dragon King's scream stopped, the sky-devouring toad swallowed Torch Dragon King. "Little brother, what are you doing? We're all brothers. How can you be so cruel?" Yi Xian reprimanded slightly. As Yi Xian's words fell, the sky-devouring toad grinned and bowed to Yi Xian. "Big Brother is kind and naturally can't bear to punish your own brother. However, Torch Dragon King betrayed Big Brother and deserves death. I killed him on impulse. Please forgive me, Big Brother." Yi Xian sighed and said, "Only this time. There won't be a next time." "Yes, Big Brother." The sky-devouring toad hurriedly nodded in agreement, but a look of horror flashed across its eyes. The sky-devouring toad was not stupid, and naturally had good observation skills. Ever since Torch Dragon King pleaded with Yi Xian, it had been observing Yi Xian's expression. Although Yi Xian seemed to be smiling, there was a cold look in his eyes. The sky-devouring toad would never believe that Yi Xian would let Torch Dragon King go. When Yi Xian casually glanced at him, the sky-devouring toad immediately understood Yi Xian's intentions. His big brother did not even bother to make a move. The meaning in his eyes was telling him to kill Torch Dragon King personally. The sky-devouring toad did not have any feelings for Torch Dragon King. When he understood Yi Xian's intention, he naturally attacked and killed Torch Dragon King. This was also his way of expressing his loyalty to Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian's temperamental and vicious character was deeply imprinted in the sky-devouring toad's eyes. This also made him extremely respectful of Yi Xian, and he did not dare to have any thoughts of betrayal. Killing the chicken to warn the monkey was Yi Xian's method. Not only the sky-devouring toad, but King Qingqiu also reacted instantly. His face turned pale as he understood Yi Xian's intention. Chapter 428. It was a scheme to sow discord. This was a blatant scheme to sow discord. Today, it seemed like the sky-devouring toad had killed the Torch Dragon King. But Yi Xian was also telling the sky-devouring toad and King Qingqiu that if anyone dared to betray him, Yi Xian's old friends would stab them in the back and take their lives. At this moment, the hundreds of demon monarchs felt like they were sitting on pins and needles, because Yi Xian was giving them a lot of pressure. They wanted to leave the North Sea Dragon Palace, but the entire palace was sealed, and they couldn't leave at all. Emperor, please understand. Although we are demons, we have never offended you. Please let us go. A great demon stepped out from the crowd. Judging from his cultivation level, he was at the all-heaven mystic immortal realm, and was pleading with Yi Xian. Let you all go. Yi Xian muttered to himself. The corners of his mouth curled into a strange smile as he said, "Do you think you can leave alive?" Hiss. The group of demons were horrified. They sucked in a breath of cold air, and instantly silenced the entire North Sea Dragon Palace. However, a silent fear was spreading. The gazes of the great demons towards Yi Xian were filled with fear. Emperor, we can swear on the Great Heart Demon Oath that we will never reveal your identity. We only hope that you can be magnanimous and not make things difficult for us, the giant whale king, who was an all-heaven demon monarch, said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Emperor, please understand. If you kill us, you will only make the forces behind us view you as an enemy. Even if you transform into the five-colored peacock, you will not be able to move an inch in the North Continent, the Mandrill King said coldly. The demons were indeed afraid of Yi Xian, but they weren't fools. When Yi Xian revealed his identity, they knew that Yi Xian wouldn't let them go easily. However, these demon monarchs didn't believe that. There were hundreds of all-heaven demon monarchs. If they were forced to resist, the East Pole Emperor wouldn't have an easy time either. After all, no demon monarch would sit still and wait for death. Can't even move an inch? Yi Xian strolled in the Dragon Palace and looked at the hundreds of monster kings with a mocking gaze. Yi Xian would not tell them that he had no intention of letting these monster kings leave alive, since he dared to expose his identity. It was not that Yi Xian was a bloodthirsty person, but the hundreds of overarching heaven realm demon kings were good food. If he devoured their Dao fruits, he would definitely be comparable to a Daluo Jinxian. When Yi Xian entered the North Sea Dragon Palace and saw the demon monarchs sitting there, he had already decided to devour them. How could he let go of a piece of meat that had been delivered to his mouth? Why was Yi Xian hiding in the North Continent? It was because Yi Xian wanted to step into the Zenith Heaven realm, and in order to do so, he had to devour the Dao fruits of others. In order to kill Yu Ding and godly monarch Shui, he had devoured 2 Daluo Jinxian and condensed a Zenith Heaven 9 Revolutions golden core. In Yi Xian's perception, he could only enter the Zenith Heaven realm after devouring 9 Daluo Jinxian. This was also the reason why he called this realm the 9 Revolutions Zenith Heaven technique. Now King Yinglong was the 3rd Zenith Heaven realm demon king. The hundreds of all heaven realm demon monarchs in front of him could also be considered a Daluo Jinxian. As long as he killed these demon monarchs, he would be able to devour the cultivation of 2 Zenith Heaven Realm demon monarchs under the effect of the Calamity Transcender technique. This would also directly allow the 9 Revolutions golden core in his Sea of Consciousness to reach the small success stage, and his cultivation would also skyrocket. How could Yi Xian let the demon monarchs present go? After killing these demon monarchs, the forces behind them would naturally not let the matter rest. This was also something that Yi Xian was very happy to see. This was because he originally wanted to stir up chaos in the North Continent and kill countless demons to improve himself. If a Zenith Heaven Realm demon monarch were to attack, it would be exactly what he wanted. All of you die. Suddenly, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes slightly, and his voice was cold and ruthless. The inverse immortal array diagram shown, and the strange fluctuations of immortal turned mortals attacked the demon monarchs. A pair of terrifying giant palms slammed down on the demon monarchs present. Fellow Taoists, let's fight it out with him. The giant whale king roared in a low voice. His eyes were scarlet red as he condensed a great demonic technique and charged towards Yi Xian. As if there was a chain effect, hundreds of demon monarchs attacked together, without holding back at all. This was because the demon monarchs knew that Yi Xian would definitely not let them go. They could only fight with their lives on the line. Perhaps they would still have a chance to survive. Kill! The sky-devouring toad smiled sinisterly and attacked the demon monarchs together with King Qing Qiu. Rumble! Yi Xian blasted out with his palm, and 8 demon monarchs' bodies exploded. Their primordial spirits were captured by him. The sky-devouring toad was indeed at the peak of the Zenith Heaven Realm. He fought 5 demon monarchs alone. Terrifying black light shot out of his terrifying mouth and instantly annihilated the 5 demon monarchs' bodies. Their primordial spirits were also captured by him. King Qing Qiu's slender hand slapped out, and a great demon technique suppressed the 3 demon monarchs. His sword pierced through the 3 demon monarchs' foreheads, and he was extremely cold and ruthless. It wasn't that the sky-devouring toad and King Qing Qiu were very strong and could fight so many demon monarchs alone. It was just that the inverse immortal array diagram was too terrifying, and it suppressed the demon monarch's cultivation to the extreme. The demon monarchs roared furiously, but it was accompanied by miserable shrieks. It was all because Yi Xian was too terrifying. His cultivation wasn't inferior to the first firmament of the Zenith Heaven Realm, and he even had the inverse immortal array diagram. Although there were hundreds of demon monarchs present, they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of Yi Xian. The one-finger heavenly sword swept through the past and present, and his palm slapped out like an ancient demonic mountain. Yi Xian's palm and sword swept out in all directions, and countless demons died tragically in his hands. There were more and more blood-colored balls, and the primordial spirits of the demon monarchs were shrieking miserably. The entire North Sea Dragon Palace was filled with blood, and the thick smell of blood drifted in every inch of space. The Azura Purgatory was extremely tragic. There were demon monarchs' limbs everywhere, and less than 1 in 10 demon monarchs survived. Under Yi Xian's cruel and bloody massacre, only a few dozen demon monarchs were left. Their souls were leaving their bodies, and they were mournful and unwilling. The dozens of demon monarchs slowly retreated. Their eyes were red as they stared at Yi Xian, but the despair in their eyes was extremely strong. If there was a medicine for regret in this world, they would never have come to the North Sea Dragon Palace. Unfortunately, they were facing death now, because the East Pole Emperor was too terrifying and too unsolvable. Even if they joined forces, they were no match for the East Pole Emperor at all. Death didn't frighten the demon monarchs. What they were truly afraid of was Yi Xian's Calamity Transcender technique, because they had seen Yi Xian detain the primordial spirits of the dead demons with their own eyes. Miserable shrieks came from the blood-colored balls. They didn't know what the blood-colored balls were for, but they could feel that if their primordial spirits were imprisoned in them, they would probably end up in an extremely miserable state. In other words, their souls would scatter, and they wouldn't even have the chance to reincarnate. Yi Xian, you can't kill me. I'm under the command of Old Mother Mount Wu. Chapter 429. Bang! Yi Xian struck out with his palm, and directly blasted the great monster into pieces. The tribulation transcender technique circulated violently, and directly turned his primordial spirit cultivation base into a blood-colored ball. Kill them. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and had no intention of continuing to attack. The sky-devouring toad and King Qing Qiu smiled cruelly, and charged towards the remaining great monsters like tigers in a flock of sheep. The slaughter continued without any suspense. The roars of the demons became weaker and weaker. The sky-devouring toad and King Qing Qiu laughed sinisterly. This slaughter had also exposed their ferocious nature. Ao Shun, where are you going? Suddenly, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and looked at the North Sea Dragon King. He saw that the second Dragon King was quietly walking towards the back hall. But when he heard Yi Xian's voice, his body suddenly froze, and he turned around mechanically to look at Yi Xian. Emperor, I didn't offend you. Ao Shun forced a smile, but there was extreme fear in his eyes when he looked at Yi Xian. Dong dong dong. Yi Xian walked slowly until he sat on the dragon throne. This also made Ao Shun kneel at his feet, and even his body was trembling. Big brother, it's all settled. The sky-devouring toad and King Qing Qiu were covered in blood, and the fierce aura around them was extremely strong. At this moment, they returned to Yi Xian's side, and looked at the North Sea Dragon King with a malicious gaze. Big brother, the Kunpeng inheritance is extremely important. This North Sea Dragon King, the sky-devouring toad said excitedly. But before he could finish, Yi Xian waved his hand and interrupted him. Then he looked at the North Sea Dragon King. Emperor, I don't dare to take the Kunpeng inheritance for myself. This is the map to enter the Dark North Sea, but it requires the blood of 100 monsters to open the seal. I am willing to give it to you. The North Sea Dragon King did not hesitate at all. He directly opened the Simaru space and took out a black jade token. Then, he handed it to Yi Xian with both hands. The black jade tablet was not made of gold, iron or wood. It was unknown what it was made of. However, an extremely boundless aura rushed towards Yi Xian. Obviously, it was an ancient artifact. The front of the black jade tablet was engraved with complicated lines. It was obviously a map to enter the northern underworld sea. When Yi Xian turned the black jade tablet around, a touch of surprise flashed through his eyes. The back of the jade token was as black as ink, and there was a faint demonic light flickering on it. A Kuan fish jumped out, and the roar that could shatter the three realms sounded in Yi Xian's ears. But this wasn't the end. The Kuan fish suddenly transformed into a rock and rushed into Yi Xian's eyes. The rock's cry shook Yi Xian's sea of consciousness and gave Yi Xian a piercing pain. Clang! Yi Xian was in a daze. The black jade tablet fell to the ground. This made the sky-devouring toad and Ao Shun's expressions change drastically. A terrifying demonic light burst forth as they slapped towards the North Sea Dragon King. You're courting death. The sky-devouring toad roared angrily. Back off. Suddenly, Yi Xian's voice sounded. The sky-devouring toad's breath stopped. It quickly looked towards Yi Xian, and found that Yi Xian was fine. The black jade tablet was in Yi Xian's hand again. The Kunpeng's inheritance? Yi Xian kept playing with the jade tablet in his hand. A strange smile appeared on his face. He looked at Ao Shun, who was kneeling at his feet, and said gently, Ao Shun, I don't understand. Since you know where the northern underworld sea is, why didn't you keep it to yourself? Why did you gather so many demon kings here? Hearing Yi Xian's words, Ao Shun's eyes turned. He forced a smile and said, Your Majesty is wise. I said before that the northern underworld sea is too dangerous. If I want to break the seal, I need the blood essence of 100 demons. Moreover, I'm only an all-heaven Xian immortal. Even if I want to keep the Kunpeng's inheritance to myself, I can't do it. Ao Shun paused for a moment and smiled flatteringly. It's just that I didn't know that the Celestial Emperor was in the Dragon Palace. Now that all the demons have been killed by the Celestial Emperor, the blood essence of 100 demons is easily available. Moreover, the Celestial Emperor's cultivation is so high that it would be easy for you to obtain the inheritance of the Kunpeng. I am more than willing to lead the North Sea Dragon Palace to the Celestial Emperor, and follow your lead from now on. Yi Xian looked at the North Sea Dragon King's flattering smile and said, "Actually, I'm not interested in the Kuan Peng's inheritance. Since you don't want to tell me the truth, I won't force you." Yi Xian stood up from the dragon throne. As his fingers swept through the air, he stored the blood-colored balls into his Simmeru space. Then, he slowly walked out of the North Sea Dragon Palace. His appearance once again changed into Kong Li's appearance, but his cold and vicious voice sounded in the ears of the sky-swallowing toad and Kong Li. "Destroy his North Sea Dragon Palace. Kill every last one of them. Leave no one alive. Your Majesty, please spare my life." Yi Xian walked out of the Northern Underworld Sea Dragon Palace, but Ao Shun's pleading voice came from behind him. With a loud bang, Ao Shun's voice came to an abrupt end. Since Yi Xian had given the order before he left, the two demon kings naturally had to follow Yi Xian's instructions. They beat Ao Shun to death, and then carried out a tragic massacre in the Northern Underworld Sea Dragon Palace. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the sky above the Northern Underworld Sea. There were no waves on the calm surface of the sea, but no one knew that the entire Northern Underworld Sea Dragon Palace was suffering an unimaginable bloody massacre. Since Yi Xian showed his appearance, he naturally wouldn't let Ao Shun and the Northern Underworld Sea Dragon Palace go. After all, only the dead could keep secrets. Some people might ask, is Yi Xian not interested in the Kuan Peng's inheritance? In fact, Yi Xian was very interested in the Kuan Peng's inheritance. However, Yi Xian was an extremely calm person, and he did things in an orderly manner. He wouldn't throw away a watermelon for a sesame seed. First of all, during this trip to the Northern Underworld, Yi Xian had obtained the small cauldron by chance and integrated it into the bronze scripture, allowing the bronze scripture to have an extra scripture. This was the most important thing for Yi Xian. Yi Xian was very sure that this extra scripture was extremely important to him. He had to immediately return to the Tongtian mountain range to study it. Second, after killing so many demon kings, Yi Xian had condensed them into blood-colored balls under the effect of the Tribulation Transcender technique. He had to refine them as soon as possible to improve his cultivation. Demon King Winged Dragon and hundreds of demon kings. This was the cultivation of 2 Daluo Jingxian. It would directly allow Yi Xian's 9 Revolutions Golden Core to enter the small success stage. This was a terrifying improvement for him. After all, the Kuan Peng inheritance was illusory, and the North Sea Dragon King was definitely not telling the truth. It was definitely not that simple. The most important problem was that now that 2 great opportunities were in front of him, how could he take the risk to explore the Northern Underworld Sea and give up on improving his cultivation? Rice had to be eaten one bite at a time. Yi Xian understood this very well, so he could only put the Kuan Peng inheritance aside for the time being. Rumble! 2 demonic lights broke out of the sea and directly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The sky-swallowing toad and the demon king were covered in blood. After 7 days and 7 nights of slaughter, the North Sea Dragon Palace had turned into an Azura slaughterhouse. Only then did they appear in front of Yi Xian to report to him. "Big brother, according to your instructions, there are no longer any living creatures in the North Sea Dragon Palace. Moreover, the 2 of us have plundered all the treasures in the Dragon Palace. Please check them." The Qingkuan bag appeared in his hand, and the sky-swallowing toad handed it to Yi Xian. "There's no need for that. The 2 of you can do whatever you want." Yi Xian did not take the Qingkuan bag. Clearly, he was not interested in the items in the Dragon Palace. "Big brother, when we return to the Tongtian Ridge, should we tell our brothers about your identity?" King Qingqiu probed. "My identity cannot be exposed before I enter the Grand Heavenly Realm." Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. When he took a step forward, demonic lights that covered the sky rolled out and directly returned to the Tongtian Ridge. Looking at Yi Xian's back, the sky-swallowing toad and King Qingqiu looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. Now, only the 2 of them knew about Yi Xian's true identity. This also indirectly meant that the 2 of them were regarded as Yi Xian's trusted subordinates. Naturally, Yi Xian would not treat them unfairly. The most important problem was that their big brother was the Emperor of the Far East, and had once fought against the Jade Emperor. Even the saint of the Jia sect, Tongtian, was on Yi Xian's side. If they could stay by Yi Xian's side, their future would definitely be limitless. Moreover, the two of them could see that Yi Xian was very ambitious. How could the small North Continent tolerate such a person? Sooner or later, their big brother would kill his way back to the Celestial Court. It was not impossible for him to even seize the throne of the Celestial Emperor. Although these were all guesses of the two of them, it was not impossible. Let's go, King Qingqiu whispered. The two demon kings rode on their demonic clouds and chased after Yi Xian. Chapter 430. Demonic clouds covered the sky and the firmament rumbled. When Yi Xian and the other two returned to Sky-Piercing Ridge, they caused countless demons to roar and howl. There were even 8 demon kings that came to welcome them. For a time, the Sky-Piercing Ridge was extremely lively. Yi Xian's trip to the North Sea took a year. When the sky-devouring toad spread the treasures of the Dragon Palace, the other 8 demon kings were pleasantly surprised. They discussed how to divide the cultivation resources together. However, what puzzled the 8 demon kings was that Yi Xian went into seclusion as soon as he returned to the Tongtian Ridge. Everything was handled by King Qingqiu and the sky-devouring toad. The thing that unsettled the 8 demon kings the most was the disappearance of Torch Dragon King. They clearly remembered that Torch Dragon King had followed Yi Xian to the North Sea. Why hadn't he returned? The group of demons naturally didn't dare to ask Yi Xian. These questions were naturally answered by the sky-devouring toad and King Qingqiu. When the other demon kings understood what happened in the North Sea, their faces turned pale as waves of shock rose in their hearts. Torch Dragon King betrayed Big Brother and was personally killed by the sky-devouring toad. In the end, not even his primordial spirit was left behind. Winged Dragon King died tragically in the North Sea. Hundreds of great demons were killed. The entire North Sea Dragon Palace was destroyed in the hands of the 2 demon kings. What? When King Qingqiu told them the news, the 8 demon kings had different expressions. However, the atmosphere in the Navagraha cave was extremely heavy. Clearly, what Yi Xian did was too horrifying. Of course, King Qingqiu and the sky-devouring toad didn't reveal Yi Xian's true identity. They only told the other demon kings about the outcome of the trip to the north, so that they could be mentally prepared. Although the North Sea Dragon Palace was destroyed, there were hundreds of millions of sea tribes in the North Sea. The 2 of them massacred the North Sea Dragon Palace and left so brazenly. They would definitely be seen by some sea tribes. It wouldn't be long before all the demon forces in the North Continent gathered on the Tongtian Ridge. It wasn't impossible for them to denounce them. Moreover, the North Sea Dragon Palace was under the jurisdiction of the Celestial Court. The Celestial Court definitely wouldn't sit by and do nothing after such a huge incident. This was also the reason why the 8 demon kings had heavy hearts. At the same time, heaven and earth shook, and all living things were in an uproar. The North Sea Dragon Palace had been completely slaughtered, and the various demon kings had died miserably. When this news spread throughout the 3 realms, it caused all the living beings in the 3 realms to discuss in astonishment. They wondered who would dare to do such a deranged thing. The various demon kings had died tragically in the North Sea Dragon Palace. As the North Continent was extremely chaotic, it was not uncommon for demon kings to kill each other and die. However, the North Sea Dragon Palace belonged to the Celestial Court. This time, even the North Sea Dragon Palace had no survivors. This was basically a slap in the face to the Celestial Court. If it had been in the past, the Celestial Court would have sent an army to the border, and the Celestial Emperor would have personally come to investigate this matter. However, things were different now. Previously, the East Emperor rebelled against the Celestial Court. Later, the Chan School and Jie School fought in the Celestial Court. The Emperor Ziwei stood on the opposite side of the Jade Emperor. The Jade Emperor really had no one he could use. Lingxiao Palace of the 33rd Celestial Court. The Jade Emperor sat high on the throne in the middle. His face was extremely pale. The immortals of the 2 sects stood on both sides of the palace. However, an extremely oppressive atmosphere spread throughout the Lingxiao Palace. My dear subjects, the North Sea Dragon Palace was completely destroyed in a day. This is a challenge to the dignity of the celestial court. I wonder which one of you is willing to lead an army to the lower realm to investigate this matter? The Jade Emperor said sternly. Unfortunately, the immortals looked on coldly. No one answered. This made the Jade Emperor clench his fists. The Zenith Heaven immortal aura around him fluctuated slightly, proving how furious he was. The atmosphere, helplessness, irritation, and all sorts of negative and dark emotions filled the Jade Emperor's heart. This made his face slightly contort, but in the end he sighed helplessly. As the saying goes, one knows one's own affairs best. This time, the North Sea Dragon Palace was destroyed. King Yinglong had already died. This was definitely done by a Zenith Heaven Demon King. In the past, he only needed to inform Emperor Zhenwu, and he would naturally deal with this matter. However, Emperor Zhenwu was killed by Yi Xian. Emperor Ziwei turned against him and went to the lower realm. As for Emperor Go Chun, he did not even participate in the Celestial Court's grand meeting. At this moment, no one knew where he was. The Chan School and Jie School were in constant conflict. Looking at the entire Celestial Court, the Jade Emperor did not have anyone he could use. Daoyuo Jingxian transcended the three realms, was not in the five elements, and was not recorded in the three books of heaven, earth and man. Even if he was the Jade Emperor, he could not force Daoyuo Jingxian to listen to orders. The North Sea Dragon Palace incident was clearly done by a Zenith Heaven Demon King. However, looking at the 33rd Celestial Court, no one could take on this heavy responsibility. The pagoda-bearing Heavenly King was not even an overarching heaven mystic immortal. It was fine for him to deal with some ordinary fiendish demons. However, to ask him to lead heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals to deal with a Zenith Heaven Demon King was tantamount to courting death. The Jade Emperor could invite the 12 ancient golden immortals. However, the conflict between the Chan School and Jie School was extremely intense now. The 12 ancient golden immortals would probably not go to the North Continent for such a small matter. Moreover, if the Jade Emperor personally asked the 12 ancient golden immortals to take action, how would the Jie School view him? This made the Jade Emperor have too many concerns. Apart from the Zenith Heaven immortals of the Chan School and Jie School, there was no other Zenith Heaven in the entire Celestial Court. Did the Jade Emperor have to go to the lower realm to investigate this matter personally? The Spirit Mountain of the West and the underworld of the Netherworld. One was the Buddhist sacred ground, while the other was the place that controlled the Netherworld. Although the Jade Emperor was nominally in charge of the three realms, he did not have the face to ask these two forces to take action. After all, this was his Celestial Court's matter. In the past, the Jade Emperor could still discuss with the Queen Mother of the West. Now that the Queen Mother of the West had hidden herself in the Jade Pool because of the Fairy of Guanghan, the Jade Emperor could be said to be in a terrible state for the past few hundred years. Moreover, the Jade Emperor could not sleep at night. As long as he calmed down, he would be filled with Yi Xian's appearance. His greatest wish was to find Yi Xian and kill him as soon as possible. This was what he really wanted to do. Damn it! No matter how good the Jade Emperor was at holding back, he could not help but shout in the face of such an awkward situation. Venus Taibai. Yes, Your Majesty. Venus Taibai's expression changed drastically, but he still bowed to the Jade Emperor. However, his eyes were filled with bitterness. He had already guessed the Jade Emperor's thoughts. I order you to lead the 28 lunar mansions and 100,000 heavenly soldiers to the North Sea Dragon Palace to investigate this matter. You must find the culprit. The Jade Emperor swung his sleeves and stood up from his throne, leaving the Lingxiao Palace. Venus Taibai was speechless and bitter. In the end, he sighed and led 100,000 heavenly soldiers to the lower realm to the North Continent. It was no wonder that Venus Taibai was dejected. He was only a primordial unity golden immortal. Even though he had 100,000 heavenly soldiers by his side, the North Continent was filled with demons and monsters. There were also prehistoric beasts that were extremely ferocious. Even a great demon could kill him, let alone a demon king. Of course, Venus Taibai also knew that the Jade Emperor was not sending him to his death. It was just a perfunctory attitude. After all, if the celestial court did not take action, wouldn't the three realms see the celestial court as a joke? Venus Taibai had thought it through. He was going to the North Continent to reorganize the North Sea Dragon Palace. As for the so-called investigation, it was just nonsense. After 100 years, he would return with 100,000 heavenly soldiers and say that he did not find the culprit. Although he would be reprimanded by the Jade Emperor, he could only leave it as it was. Chapter 431. 100,000 heavenly soldiers descended to the lower realm. Golden clouds rose in the sky. Under the leadership of Venus Taibai, they looked majestic. However, they were only strong in appearance. They did not look like they were going to the lower realm to subdue the demons. Although the celestial court was perfunctory, the major demon forces in the North Continent would not let this matter rest. King Yinglong died tragically. The fallen fairy cave was in chaos. More than 20 Tongtian demon kings went to the North Sea to capture the members of the sea. They tried their best to find out who killed King Yinglong and his brothers. Not only was the fallen immortal cave searching for the truth, the forces behind the hundreds of demon kings that were killed by Yi Xian had also sent a large number of demon kings to the North Sea to search for Yi Xian, the true culprit behind the scenes. The North Continent was in complete chaos. Old Mother Wu Shan, Patriarch Yinglong, and the old monster of Mount Ji, 3 Grand Luo demon kings appeared. They were determined to find the real culprit. When Venus Taibai came to the North Sea Dragon Palace, he faced countless demon kings. This made him put away his immortal aura and bow to these demon kings. After all, he was only a primordial unity golden immortal. Of course, these Tongtian demon kings would not make things difficult for Venus Taibai. After all, Venus Taibai represented the celestial court. These great demons did not want to go against the celestial court. Naturally, both sides were at peace. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Even though King Qingqiu and the sky-devouring toad destroyed the North Sea Dragon Palace, the North Sea was vast. There were billions of Sea Clan members. Someone must have seen Yi Xian and the other two leave. When a carp demon told them that Yi Xian and the other two left the North Sea, the various demon forces immediately focused their attention on the Tongtian Ridge. Yi Xian became the biggest suspect. All the demon monarchs that attended the banquet had died tragically. Only Yi Xian and company had left safely. It was unknown if Yi Xian had killed these demon monarchs, but if this matter had nothing to do with Yi Xian, the various ominous demon factions would never believe it. The North Continent was in chaos. A large number of envoys headed to the Tongtian Ridge, making the Tongtian Ridge the target of public criticism. Tongtian Ridge 9 Demon Cave. An extremely terrifying seal sealed the Cave of 9 Demons. A 10,000 gene boulder blocked the entrance. Extremely mysterious symbols were engraved on the entrance, and they were currently emitting an aura that kept people away. Inside the cave, Yi Xian was dressed in black and sat cross-legged on a praying mat. The blood-red sphere revolved around him. Extremely miserable cries came from the blood-red sphere, causing the hearts of those who heard them to tremble. Yi Xian, kill. Kill me, kill me. The essence spirit of King Yinglong was bawling out, begging Yi Xian bitterly. This was a testament to the horrifying torment he was going through. King Yinglong was not the only one begging for mercy. Every single blood-red sphere had the essence spirits of demon monarchs crying out as well. This caused the entire 9 Demon Cave to be plunged into an extremely tragic atmosphere. Noisy. Suddenly, Yi Xian opened his eyes. His voice boomed out within the 9 Demon Cave. At this moment his essence, spirit, and vitality were pushed to their limits as well. Devour. Hoot hoot hoot. Black light surged out with a strange aura. An endless amount of black qi coiled around Yi Xian's body, turning him into a black vortex instantly. One by one, the blood-red spheres were sucked into his body. Rumble. Boom. Boom. The void rumbled as black light rose. When the blood-red spheres entered Yi Xian's body, his face was flushed red as his entire body shone with an extremely horrifying black light. Pooh. Suddenly, A mouthful of fresh blood spurted out from Yi Xian's mouth. Because the amount of energy that Yi Xian had devoured was way too great, his inner organs were severely damaged. However, Yi Xian's eyes were filled with excitement. Cultivate. Bam! 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 Hundreds of blood-red spheres exploded within Yi Xian's body. An unimaginably horrifying amount of energy exploded within his body. An extremely shrill demonic light drowned his entire body in an instant. Arg! Yi Xian roared out in a low voice. His handsome face was contorted. This also proved how much pain he was going through. However, the excitement in his eyes was getting stronger. The undying immortal scripture was churning furiously. The demonic energy within his body was being refined continuously. An unimaginably pure amount of energy was gathering towards the Daluo golden pellet in between his eyebrows. Rumble! The Daluo golden pellet buzzed and rotated in Yi Xian's sea of consciousness. The originally illusory golden pellet gradually solidified, and its size was also growing bit by bit. The dazzling golden light illuminated Yi Xian's sea of consciousness until it was spotless. An aura that did not belong to the three realms was spreading out. This aura was too strange and terrifying. With Yi Xian as the center, the space-time around him seemed to distort. Everything around him became extremely illusory. It was as if Yi Xian had broken away from this world and did not exist in the three realms at all. Time seemed to have stopped, and space seemed to have frozen. Perhaps a day had passed, or perhaps a year had passed, or perhaps even longer. Suddenly, Yi Xian opened his eyes. Wherever his gaze landed, the space around him was collapsing inch by inch. At this moment, golden light bloomed from between his eyebrows. A round and flawless golden pellet buzzed and rotated between his eyebrows. Whoosh! A stream of turbid air was spat out from Yi Xian's mouth. The immortal light around him was withdrawn into his body, and the space around him returned to normal. However, an extremely strange thing happened to Yi Xian's body. It also stunned Yi Xian on the spot. He did not recover from his shock for a full 10 breaths. Yi Xian's clothes turned to ashes. His body was shriveled and lifeless. However, when he stood up in a daze, his shriveled skin shattered inch by inch. It was as if he had walked out of a broken bag of skin. Then, he looked at the bone fragments on the ground and his old skin in a daze. He was completely stunned on the spot. What's going on? Yi Xian murmured in a daze. When his palms and fingers swept through the air, a water mirror appeared and reflected his current body. In the water mirror, Yi Xian still had his original appearance, but he was now extremely different. His skin was as translucent as snow, and at this moment, it bloomed with dazzling light. This light was not immortal light, nor was it the light of demons. It seemed like it had never appeared in the three realms before, but it was enough to make one's soul tremble. His pitch-black hair hung down his back, and each strand seemed to flow like a long river of the 9 heavens. It gave off the impression that it could crush all things in the world. As he breathed in and out, he could faintly hear the sounds of wind and thunder. Although these sounds were extremely faint, Yi Xian could still clearly hear them. Bang! Yi Xian clenched his fists, and an explosion sounded out from his fists. The entire space was crushed by him, and a vacuum appeared. A destructive force was born from his fists. Rebirth, the origin immortal body? Yi Xian paused between each word. His voice was trembling, and his body was trembling. This was proof of the extent to which Yi Xian's mind was in turmoil. After 10 full seconds, Yi Xian did his utmost to calm himself down. He constantly inspected his body, but his aura was growing more and more disorderly. Chapter 432. The immortal energy in his body surged like a vast sea, and wherever his will passed, it was like an unstoppable volcano eruption. The endless power filled every inch of Yi Xian's flesh and blood, giving him the urge to roar at the sky. The Daluo immortal body. It really is the Daluo immortal body. Yi Xian roared, his face flushed red, and his emotions indescribably excited. When the Daluo immortal body was mentioned, it was necessary to talk about the shaman tribe. It was common knowledge that when the heavens and the earth were created, all living things were born. In the 3 dimensions of the heavens, earth, and man, the strongest body belonged to the shaman clan. They only cultivated their own bodies, and did not respect the heavens and the earth. Their bodies were the strongest magic treasures, and their combat strength was unimaginable. The strongest of the shaman tribe was the 12 ancestral shamans, who even dared to challenge saints. The 12 heavenly fiends formation, together with the 12 ancestral shamans, could condense Panga's true body. Even saints had to be cautious when facing them. However, the shaman tribe did not have a primordial spirit, so once their physical bodies died, they would truly die. It was impossible for them to become saints, which also cut off their path to becoming saints. Although the shaman tribe did not have a primordial spirit, and had retired from the stage of history after the Great War of the Witch-Demon tribe, all living things had to admit that the shaman tribe's battle prowess was unparalleled. And this battle prowess all came from their physical bodies. Whether it was immortals or demons, they all cultivated great immortal techniques, so their physical bodies could be said to be extremely weak. Even though the 8-9 mysteries of Taoism tempered their bodies, compared to the shaman tribes, it was just the difference between a firefly and the moon. It was just like how the 3 pure ones were formed from Panga's primordial spirit, but their physical bodies were much inferior to the ancestral shamans. The Daoyuo immortal body was a legendary constitution. This was also one of the conjectures of the 3 pure ones when Lao Tzu preached. It was said that if someone could cultivate the Daoyuo immortal body, their physical strength would not be inferior to that of the shaman tribe. Even if they did not rely on magic, they could still contend against the shaman tribe. And the most important problem was that only by cultivating the Daoyuo immortal body could one step into the threshold of using strength to prove one's Tao. The heavenly Tao was fair. Immortals had weak physical bodies, and the Magi did not have an essence soul. This was an iron law that had not changed since the beginning of the world. No one had ever been able to change it. However, Yi Xian cultivated the undying immortal scripture, and he had even formed the golden core of the great firmament. After devouring the Tao fruits of King Rain Dragon and hundreds of monster kings, his golden core of the great firmament had reached the level of minor completion, allowing him to undergo a complete transformation and form the great firmament immortal body. Yi Xian had a physical body that was not inferior to that of the shaman tribe, and a powerful primordial spirit. When the two merged into one, it was not as simple as 1 + 1. It had already given Yi Xian an extremely terrifying battle prowess. For example, now that Yi Xian had a basic understanding of the origin immortal body, he could rely on his physical body alone to contend against Daoyuo Jingxian. If he revealed his cultivation and the origin immortal body, his battle prowess would reach an unimaginable level. Moreover, he also had the immortal defying formation. Of course, Yi Xian was not arrogant enough to think that he could sweep through the Daoyuo realm right now. This was because Daoyuo Jingxian was also divided into different levels. From the 1st heavenly layer to the 9th heavenly layer, the difference between each layer was extremely great. Daoyuo Jingxian had 3 watersheds. The first watershed was from the 1st heavenly layer to the 3rd heavenly layer. This was also the initial step into the Daoyuo realm. The second watershed was from the 4th heavenly layer to the 6th heavenly layer. Yi Xian guessed that the Jade Emperor was in this realm. Moreover, when he recalled the battle in the Celestial Court back then, he realized that the Jade Emperor might not have revealed his full cultivation. As for the 3rd watershed, from the 7th heavenly layer to the 9th heavenly layer, that was already a revered existence. It was definitely not an existence that Yi Xian could imagine. Yi Xian was absolutely certain that no one below the 3rd heavenly layer of the Daoyuo realm would be a match for him now that he had a basic understanding of the origin immortal body. However, Yi Xian was not satisfied. Only by cultivating the 9 revolutions Daoyuo technique to perfection and breaking into the Daoyuo realm would he have the foundation to stand in the world. Only then would he be able to trample on the Jade Emperor and seize his position as Celestial Emperor. This was also Yi Xian's greatest ambition. It was also the reason why he had endured patiently in the North Continent. After 3 days and 3 nights, Yi Xian finally calmed down. When he waved his hand in the air, the bronze scripture also appeared in the void. The bronze scripture was simple and heavy, The extra page of the scripture was inscribed with a mysterious cauldron. It was releasing an obscure aura that made Yi Xian feel extremely close to it. Buzz! With the bronze scripture in hand, Yi Xian focused on the extra page of the scripture. However, after dozens of breaths, there were no other words recorded on the page other than the mysterious cauldron. Yi Xian stroked the scripture and frowned slightly. The undying immortal scripture was circulating in his body, and his energy was constantly pouring into the scripture. Boom! Suddenly something strange happened. Yi Xian's eyes were dull. His primordial spirit instantly fused with the scripture. His entire body was stunned on the ground, and there was no longer any sound coming from him. The void in all directions was shrouded in chaos. This was a vast and boundless space. It was impossible to distinguish north from south, east from west, and there was no concept of time. A dark gray gas steamed in this space, giving off an extremely mysterious feeling. An ancient bronze cauldron floated in the void, emitting a misty black light around it. There were also strands of chaotic light wrapped around the cauldron, causing one's soul to tremble at a glance. Yi Xian stared blankly at the ancient cauldron in front of him. There was a faint calling sound in his ears, urging Yi Xian to walk towards the ancient bronze cauldron in a daze. Dong dong dong. As Yi Xian's step landed, the ancient bronze cauldron hummed and rotated. The dark light around it became more and more intense. When Yi Xian arrived in front of the ancient cauldron, he raised his trembling hand and pressed it on the body of the cauldron. An extremely shocking change occurred. Chi chi chi. The ancient bronze cauldron glowed. This was a kind of boundless dark light. Hieroglyphs jumped out from the cauldron and formed an extremely mysterious scripture in front of Yi Xian. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian suddenly woke up. He stared at the dark scripture in front of him, his whole body immersed in it. Yi Xian didn't recognize these hieroglyphs because these characters didn't belong to the three realms. However, he could understand this scripture, as if this was his innate talent. Tribulation Transcender Transformation? After an unknown amount of time, Yi Xian's eyes focused, and a murmur came from his mouth. The dark scripture in front of him suddenly merged with his primordial spirit. The ancient bronze cauldron also returned to normal, and rotated in the void again. Yi Xian took 3 steps back. His primordial spirit was in chaos at this moment. Obviously, this scripture had shocked him to the core, and he had fallen into a state where he couldn't extricate himself. Tribulation Transcender Technique. Tribulation Transcender Transformation. Although there was only a difference of one word, the contents recorded by the two were extremely different. This black scripture caused Yi Xian to breathe heavily, and he couldn't recover for a long time. If the Tribulation Transcender Technique was to devour the cultivation of others to increase one's own cultivation, then the Tribulation Transcender Transformation was even more terrifying. Yi Xian simply couldn't believe that there was such a heaven-defying technique in this world. Chapter 433. The key to the Tribulation Transcender Transformation was the word transformation. Taoists had the 36 heavenly spirit transformations and 72 earthly fiend transformations, but they were all great immortal techniques that could transform into anything in the world and display great power. However, the Tribulation Transcender Transformation was different because it wasn't a transformation technique, but a fighting technique. What was a fighting technique? As the name implied, a fighting technique was a display of combat strength, but it was also a great offensive technique. The Tribulation Transcender Transformation could allow the cultivator's cultivation to skyrocket for an hour, allowing them to fight enemies one realm above them. One shouldn't underestimate this realm. It had to be known that the gap between each realm in Daluo Jingxian was like the difference between heaven and earth. In the battle at the Celestial Court, Zhenwu Demon Sweeping Emperor was at the second heavenly layer of Zenith Heaven, but he was extremely afraid of Emperor Ziwei, who had just stepped into the third heavenly layer of Zenith Heaven. Even when Yi Xian killed Taoist Master Yu Ding, he had hibernated for 10 years to gain the other party's trust. Only then did he take advantage of Taoist Master Yu Ding's closed-door healing to kill him in one fell swoop. Because Taoist Master Yu Ding was at the second heavenly layer of zenith heaven, Yi Xian didn't have enough confidence to face him head-on. From this, one could see how terrifying the gap between each realm and Daluo Jingxian was. Why was the Tribulation Transcender Transformation said to be a heaven-defying technique? In fact, the reason was very simple. It was because the Tribulation Transcender Transformation was extremely overbearing. Ordinary Daluo Jingxian couldn't cultivate it at all. If they tried to forcibly cultivate it, their body would collapse and their soul would scatter. If one wanted to cultivate the Tribulation Transcender Transformation, the most basic condition was to cultivate the Zenith Heaven Immortal body. Moreover, one had to use the Immortal Scripture General Outline to cultivate this technique. To put it bluntly, if one wanted to cultivate the Tribulation Transcender Transformation, they had to walk the path of strength. Otherwise, no one would be able to cultivate this technique. The Tribulation Transcender Transformation could be said to be tailor-made for Yi Xian. In the three realms, he was the only one who could cultivate it. Perhaps some people would ask, Tribulation Transcender Transformation only increases one realm by one realm. Isn't that too weak? How could it be worthy of the title of a heaven-defying technique? In fact, this was the strength of the Tribulation Transcender Transformation. After all, there were 3 watersheds in the 9 heavens of the all-heaven immortal realm, and the difference between each watershed was extremely terrifying. For example, the 3rd level of the golden immortal realm and the 4th level of the golden immortal realm seemed to be only a single level apart. But it was precisely this difference of a single level that even 10 3rd-level golden immortals would not be a match for a 4th-level golden immortal realm expert. The golden immortals of the continent transcended the 3 realms and the 5 elements. Their lifespans were boundless, but countless 3rd firmament golden immortals were shackled in this realm for 1,000,000 years, unable to step into the 4th firmament their entire lives. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the 3 watersheds in Daluo Jingxian were. They were not easy to cross. As for the Tribulation Immortal Transformation, Yi Xian called it a heaven-defying technique. The key point was that the Tribulation Immortal Transformation could break through these shackles. Although it was only increasing his strength by a single boundary, the difference in terms of the increase in Yi Xian's combat strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. If Yi Xian was at the 3rd level of the all-heaven immortal realm, he would have the cultivation of the 4th level of the all-heaven immortal realm within 2 hours after using the Tribulation Immortal Transformation. If he was at the 6th level of the all-heaven immortal realm, he would cross the 2nd watershed and have the cultivation of the 7th level of the all-heaven immortal realm. This was the truly heaven-defying aspect of the Tribulation Immortal Transformation. Unfortunately, what made Yi Xian slightly disappointed was that although the Tribulation Immortal Transformation was good, and Yi Xian wanted to cultivate it, the Tribulation Immortal Transformation was extremely overbearing. Although he had already condensed the all-heaven immortal body, his cultivation was still in the 9 revolutions all-heaven technique. Only when his cultivation reached the all-heaven immortal realm could he truly cultivate this technique. Although he could not cultivate the Tribulation Immortal Transformation now, Yi Xian was already satisfied. As long as he stepped into the all-heaven immortal realm, he would naturally be able to cultivate this technique. Yi Xian believed that when his cultivation stepped into the golden immortal realm, it would be the time for him to break out of his cocoon and transform into a butterfly. As long as the saints of the 3 realms didn't appear, he would have nothing to fear. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and finally calmed down completely. He carefully observed the ancient bronze cauldron in the void. After several dozen breaths of time, he let out a long sigh. The ancient bronze cauldron was very mysterious and did not leak any aura. No matter how he investigated it, he could not find any clues about the origin of the ancient bronze cauldron. It was just that Yi Xian had cultivated to his current realm. He could already feel that whether it was the Bronze Immortal Sutra, the heaven-punishing halberd that recognized him as its master, or the ancient bronze cauldron that he had obtained by chance, these 3 things were definitely not things of the 3 realms. Their origins must be extremely mysterious. Who created the Immortal Sutra? Where did the heaven-punishing halberd, and the ancient bronze cauldron come from? What was the purpose of the mysterious Yuan Ling? Who was his real body? All of this was a cloud of fog, waiting for Yi Xian to unravel it one by one. However, he now knew that if he wanted to unravel this fog, he had to constantly strengthen himself. This was what he needed to do now. After all, only by becoming stronger could one stand firmly in the world. It could also allow one to face all difficulties without fear. Buzz! Yi Xian's essence spirit turned illusory and quietly disappeared from this mysterious space. When he opened his eyes again, his body and essence spirit had merged together. The scene in the Nine-Demon Cave was also reflected in his eyes. On this day, the Tongtian mountain range was extremely solemn. Countless demons were hibernating, but the world was silent for thousands of miles. From time to time, fierce demon lights would be looming in the mountains. Conference Hall. The 10 demon kings sat on both sides of the hall. An extremely oppressive atmosphere reverberated in the conference hall. Each of the demon kings had a worried look on their faces. It was obvious that they had encountered an extremely troublesome matter. Second brother. Now all the demon forces in the North Continent have their eyes on the Tongtian mountain range. They have even spread the word that they want us to give them an explanation. If this matter is not handled well, the Tongtian mountain range will suffer a great calamity. The Lionheart King looked at the sky-devouring toad with a worried expression. His voice was slightly low. Second brother, when is big brother going to go into seclusion? The envoys of these demon forces are waiting outside the hall. If we don't give them an explanation, I'm afraid they won't let this matter rest. The White Deer King's face was flushed red, and his voice trembled slightly. That's right, second brother. Now that big brother is in seclusion, you are in charge of the Tongtian mountain range. You have to think of a way, the Great Rock King said anxiously. As the three of them spoke, the other demon kings echoed in agreement, causing the entire conference hall to become noisy. Oomph! Suddenly, the sky-devouring toad snorted coldly. Its protruding eyeballs were bulging as it said in a cold voice, "Look at how useless you are. These demon forces haven't come yet. What are you afraid of?" Second brother, you can't say that. The Tongtian mountain range is considered an overlord in the North Continent, but now all the demon forces in the North Continent have their eyes on us. If Big Brother doesn't resolve this matter, I'm afraid the Tongtian mountain range will be destroyed in an instant, the White Deer King said with a frown. Chapter 434. Bang! The sky-devouring toad's face turned cold as he smashed the table in front of him into pieces. He looked at the White Deer King with a murderous look in his eyes. Then, he surrounded the demon kings as his cold voice echoed in the meeting hall. Big Brother's cultivation base is exceedingly high. If anyone dares to bully our Heavenspan Ridge, we'll kill them one by one. If two come, we'll kill a pair. However, if any of you here want to collude with outsiders and betray Big Brother, then don't blame me for disregarding our many years of brotherhood. The sky-devouring toad had the highest cultivation among the demon kings. His anger naturally silenced the other demon kings. However, their eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. They could not understand why the sky-devouring toad and the king of Qingqiu were so loyal to Yi Xian after returning from a trip to the North Sea with Yi Xian. Unfortunately, the sky-devouring toad naturally would not tell the demon kings that Yi Xian was the East Pole Emperor. He was so loyal to Yi Xian as a gesture of goodwill. When Yi Xian stepped into the grand heavenly realm and returned to the celestial court, the sky-devouring toad would naturally benefit greatly. Of course, the sky-devouring toad could not say this now. He could only wait for Yi Xian to reveal his identity. Alright, second brother. The most important thing now is to send these messengers away. We'll talk about the rest after Big Brother comes out of seclusion, the king of Qingqiu said with a frown. The sky-devouring toad's anger subsided when he heard the king of Qingqiu's words. He also knew that now was not the time for internal strife. Let these messengers in. I want to see what these ominous demons are up to, the sky-devouring toad said darkly, and ordered the smaller demon kings to leave. Soon, a large number of footsteps could be heard from outside the hall. Dozens of demon kings strolled into the meeting hall. When they saw the 10 demon kings present, there was no fear in their eyes. "May I know why you have come to the Tongtian Ridge?" the sky-devouring toad asked in a low voice, as if he did not know the purpose of these messengers' visit. "The Black Eagle King under the Old Mother of Mount Wu greets you, seniors. The Green Dragon King under the Patriarch Yinglong greets you, seniors. The Dragon King under the Mountain Patriarch greets you, seniors." The dozens of great demons cupped their fists in greeting. Although they were also demon kings, their cultivation levels were not high. The strongest among them was only a primordial unity golden immortal. When they saw the sky-devouring toad and the others, they naturally had to greet them as juniors. Of course, as the emissaries of the various ominous devil powers, even though their cultivations weren't high, they represented their own powers. So they naturally wouldn't bow and scrape before the heaven-devouring toad and the others, and they instead emanated an overbearing aura. "I wonder which one of you is Great Sage Beichen." The Dark Hawk King clasped his fist and spoke coldly. He constantly observed the sky-devouring toad and the others, but he failed to find any traces of Yi Xian. His face became even more sunken. "My big brother is in seclusion. I am in charge of the Tongtian Ridge now. No matter what you have to say, just tell me," the sky-devouring toad said with a malicious look in its eyes. "All right." The Dark Hawk King's lips curled into a cold smile. "On the orders of the Patriarch, we would like to ask the Tongtian Ridge why only Kong Li returned safely after the North Sea Dragon Palace was destroyed and the various demon kings died tragically. Senior Sky-Devouring, please explain this matter." The Dark Hawk King sneered. The other emissaries also looked unfriendly, although they didn't explicitly point out that Kong Li was responsible for this matter. The interrogative intent in their words was clear as day. "Humph." The sky-devouring toad snorted coldly. "What a joke. What does the Demon King's tragic deaths and the North Sea Dragon Palace's destruction have to do with the Tongtian Ridge?" "I'm afraid you've asked the wrong person, haven't you?" "Asked the wrong person?" The Mandrill King sneered. "The Demon Kings died tragically, the North Sea Dragon Palace was destroyed, and the Sea Race saw you and King Qing Qiu leave the North Sea Dragon Palace covered in blood. Now you're telling us that this matter has nothing to do with the Tongtian Ridge? Isn't this the biggest joke in the world?" "That's right. If the Tongtian Ridge doesn't give us an explanation today, I'm afraid the Tongtian Ridge won't even have a chance to explain when our Patriarch comes," the Green Dragon King said coldly. "How dare you?" Suddenly, the sky-devouring toad roared angrily, causing the entire meeting hall to shake violently. A terrifying demonic light spread out, and it looked at the emissaries with an extremely sinister gaze. "Sky-devouring toad, don't think that we're afraid of you just because you're at the peak of the All-Heaven realm. Kill us today if you have the ability, but we have to remind you that if we die here, the entire Tongtian Ridge will be buried with us in less than 3 days," the Dark Hawk King said coldly. "Second brother, please don't be rash." The White Deer King's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly tried to dissuade the sky-devouring toad. Obviously, these emissaries couldn't be killed, or they would definitely bring disaster to the Tongtian Ridge. "Second brother, please calm down. Fellow Taoists, please calm down. The Tongtian Ridge will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation for this matter." The Lionheart King hurriedly tried to dissuade them. The 2 demon kings had lowered their heads, and this made the emissaries even more fearless. Although the Tongtian Ridge was considered an overlord of the North Continent, they naturally had to lower their heads in the face of all the demon forces in the North Continent. The emissaries knew this very well, and this was also the reason why they were so confident. After talking for so long, none of you can make a decision. Since that's the case, call Kong Li out. As long as he gives us a satisfactory explanation, we'll turn around and leave without another word," the Manta King said coldly. This? The Lionheart King's face flushed red, and he was obviously a little speechless. How could he not want Yi Xian to come out and resolve this matter? However, Yi Xian was currently in seclusion, and before he went into seclusion, he had given strict orders that no one was to disturb him. This made the Lionheart King unsure of how to deal with this matter. Buzz! Suddenly, The void rumbled and ripples spread. A demonic light quietly appeared in the meeting hall. When the light dissipated, it revealed Yi Xian's figure, which made the 10 demon kings happy. Big brother. The sky-devouring toad was the first to bow, and the other demon kings hurriedly greeted Yi Xian. However, the emissaries looked at Yi Xian with an unfriendly expression, obviously knowing that the person who had come was the master of the Tongtian Ridge, Kong Li. Yi Xian was unperturbed and indifferent to the emissaries' arrival. He was not surprised at all, as if he had already expected this outcome. Kong Li, since you've come out, then it's easy to handle. Please explain how the various demon kings died, and who was the real culprit behind their deaths? The Black Hawk King strode forward. He wasn't afraid of Yi Xian in the slightest, and his voice carried a questioning tone. Yi Xian was dressed in black, and his black hair fell behind his head. When he opened and closed his eyes, they were as deep as an ancient pool, and a touch of indifference flashed across his eyes as he looked at the emissaries present. I killed them. Is there a problem? Yi Xian seemed to be talking about a very casual matter, but when these words reached the ears of the emissaries, the entire meeting hall suddenly fell silent, and everyone looked at Yi Xian in shock. Chapter 435. It was no wonder that everyone was behaving this way. The 10 demon kings naturally knew that this was done by Yi Xian, but they had not expected Yi Xian to admit to it directly. Had their big bro gone mad? Did he not know that admitting to this would definitely incur the wrath of all the major powers? Big bro, you. The sky-devouring toad stuttered out, his mind in a mess. You killed him? The Dark Eagle King was dumbfounded. He could not believe what he had just heard. He had not expected Yi Xian to admit to it directly without any rebuttal. You. The Dark Eagle King uttered the word you 3 times in a row. His entire being was in a terrible state. He had thought that Yi Xian would try to explain himself. But to think that this would be the outcome. The words that he had prepared for a long time had no place to be used. It was as though he had punched cotton. This feeling was extremely unbearable for the Dark Eagle King. The Dark Eagle King was not the only one who was dumbfounded. All the other envoys were trembling as well. The way they looked at Yi Xian was even more horrified. Their hearts were rattled to an extreme. How dare you? After tens of breaths, the Dark Eagle King finally snapped back to his senses. His face was flushed red as he roared at Yi Xian. Kong Li, you've got guts. Not only have you destroyed the North Sea Dragon Palace, you've even killed all the demon kings. I'll definitely report this matter to the old masters. Just you wait for the entire Tongtian Ridge to be buried with you. The Dark Eagle King roared as his face turned green. He flicked his robes furiously and strode out of the meeting hall. All the other envoys followed him furiously. Clearly, they were going to report this matter to the old masters. Suddenly, before the Dark Eagle King and the others could walk out of the meeting hall, Yi Xian's sinister voice rang out behind them. This caused the faces of the Dark Eagle King and the others to change as they froze on the spot. Do you think my Tongtian Ridge is a place where you can come and go as you please? Traces of cold sweat appeared on the foreheads of the Black Hawk King and the others. Their faces instantly turned deathly pale as they stiffly turned around to look at Yi Xian. However, what entered their eyes was Yi Xian's sinister and ice-cold expression. Kong Li, what do you want? The Dark Eagle King said with a trembling voice. His body was trembling uncontrollably because he had discovered something extremely terrifying. Since Kong Li dared to kill all the demon kings, and even the celestial court, even the North Sea Dragon Palace of the North Sea of the North Sea, even the North Sea Dragon Palace of the North with such a maniac person, I'm afraid it would be extremely difficult for them to leave this sky-piercing ridge. Moreover, the Black Hawk King saw the ice-cold killing intent in Yi Xian's eyes. This caused an extremely terrifying feeling to arise in his heart. Since you're here, don't leave. Leave your lives behind. Yi Xian spoke calmly, as if he was talking about something very casual. But the way he looked at the Dark Eagle King and the others was like he was looking at dead people. Plop! Suddenly, the Mandrill King knelt on the ground. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat. He kowtowed to Yi Xian with all his might. His voice trembled as he said, Spare my life. I was only following orders, spare my life. As if there was a chain reaction, dozens of demon kings all knelt on the ground. Their faces were extremely pale, and their eyes were filled with fear. Clearly they were not stupid. Since Yi Xian dared to ignore all the major demon forces, Yi Xian would naturally kill them as he pleased. This made them extremely regret coming here. They kept kowtowing to Yi Xian, begging him to show mercy and spare their lives. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not have the slightest bit of pity for these envoys' humble pleas. They were destined to die here today. Leave one alive. Kill the rest. Yi Xian waved his hand. The 10 demon kings beside him had ferocious expressions. Their bodies emitted terrifying demonic light as they charged towards the envoys with extremely terrifying ferocity. Demon blood splattered everywhere as broken limbs were severed. Faced with the slaughter of the 10 demon kings, these envoys did not even have the strength to retaliate. In less than 10 breaths, other than the Dark Eagle King who was kneeling on the ground, the other envoys had all died miserably on the spot. The blood was bleak, and the thick smell of blood drifted in the air. It also turned the entire conference hall into a bloody purgatory. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Xian walked slowly. With every step he took, it was as if he was stepping on the bottom of the Dark Eagle King's heart, causing his body to tremble. He touched the ground with his forehead, and did not dare to raise his head to look at Yi Xian. I don't like killing. Go back and pass a message to the ancestors behind you. If they know their place, I, Kong Li, will naturally not make things difficult for them. If they want to die, I don't mind exterminating them. Did you hear that? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and said sinisterly. I heard it. I will definitely pass on the message. The Dark Eagle King's face was ghastly pale. He kept kowtowing to Yi Xian. His posture was extremely humble. Where was the arrogance from before? Scram. Yi Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. He did not look at the Dark Eagle King, and sat back on the white bone throne. It was a great blessing for the Dark Eagle King to be able to keep his life. He did not dare to say anything else. He quickly got up and left the place in a sorry state. Looking at the Dark Eagle King's fleeing figure, the sky-devouring toad looked at Yi Xian with a puzzled expression. Big brother, why didn't you kill him? That's right, big brother. This person will definitely tell the major forces that you were the one who did the North Sea Dragon Palace. I'm afraid it won't be long before these forces join forces to attack the Tongtian Ridge. Wouldn't that be? King Qingqiu wanted to say something but stopped. However, his eyes were filled with worry. Yi Xian smiled and did not answer their questions. However, when he opened and closed his eyes, his Dharma eyes shone through the entire North Continent. His voice was strange and sinister. What I want is for them to attack the Tongtian Ridge. If I personally go and kill them one by one, it will take too long. When will I be able to step into the Zenith Heaven realm? Patriarch Long, Old Monster Jishan, and Old Mother Wushan. These are 3 Zenith Heaven demon kings. Haha. Yi Xian laughed loudly as an expression of extreme excitement flashed through his eyes. As the 10 demon kings looked at each other, Yi Xian stood up from the white bone throne and took a step forward before disappearing from the meeting hall. Looking at Yi Xian's back view, the 10 demon kings were stunned. Clearly, they did not understand the meaning behind Yi Xian's words. However, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Extreme fear rose from the bottom of their hearts. This feeling was so strong that it made the 10 demon kings feel uneasy. It was as if there was a voice in the unseen world telling them that something extremely terrifying would happen soon. It would also cause a huge change in the entire North Continent. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.